1121. The Heavenly Lord kills and plots. After a brief moment of confusion, a strong sense of crisis arose. For the people of the Myriad Immortals Alliance to react so quickly and uniformly, there is only one possibility in this world. The celestial worthy of teaching. Li Fan's thoughts raced. The fall of a transmitter would alarm the celestial worthy of teaching, which is understandable. But why would he choose to cooperate with Samsara? Li Fan frowned deeply. With the strength of the celestial worthy of teaching, he would definitely be able to see through Samsara's origins at a glance. Samsara attempts to revive by possessing a corpse and resurrect the devoured world, and from previous information, the celestial worthy of teaching is extremely concerned about the Xuanwang world. The two sides' positions are almost completely opposed. But according to the current situation, they seem to have reached some kind of agreement in such a short period of time. Is it because he is angered by being played, or is there some other deeper reason? Li Fan did not expect the two eternal celestial worthies to join forces and enter the arena. He decisively severed contact with the puppets who were carrying out missions in the Xuanwang world. The last order issued was for the puppets to disintegrate themselves. At the same time, he used formations to seal the entrance from the Spirit Wood world to the Xuanwang world. As for the underground world, he also temporarily closed the passage connecting to the netherworld. He planned to avoid the limelight first. Li Fan could forcibly activate the world-destroying plan at this time. But first of all, under the gaze of the celestial worthy of teaching, those bait puppets flying towards the immortal ruins, attracting the attention of the immortals within, may not be able to successfully fly out of the Xuanwang world. Although the bait puppets have the protection of netherdark power and formations, the celestial worthy of teaching should not be underestimated. Li Fan did not have the confidence to complete this under his nose. Faced with the variables, Li Fan was not flustered. I still have plenty of time. I don't believe these two can keep staring forever. There is no such thing as guarding against thieves for 1,000 days. Moreover, in their eyes, I am at most a petty thief who wants to provoke internal strife and then profit from it. There is no way they could guess my true plan to destroy the world. As long as I seize the opportunity. Thinking like this, Li Fan slowly calmed down. Then he suddenly recalled the last scene he saw through the true immortal remains. The celestial worthy of Samsara, with white mist as his body. He can actually withstand the tide formed by netherdark power. He definitely has the strength to threaten the Xuanwang world. Perhaps this is one of the reasons why the celestial worthy of teaching chose to cooperate with him. Li Fan suddenly thought of something else. The white mist barrier has been appearing in the Xuanwang world since the Great Tribulation descended. On the surface, it spans the heavens and the earth, dividing the states and regions. In reality, it is the adhesive that merges the Xuanwang world with the devoured world. And the white mist is faintly related to that celestial worthy of Samsara. In this way, it is very likely that the celestial worthy of teaching and Samsara already knew each other before. That's why they were able to reach an agreement so quickly. As for the true identity of Samsara, Li Fan also had several suspects. Celestial Physician was one of them. He came from another cultivation world. He views the world as a human body, reversing its life and death. No matter how you look at it, he meets this condition. Moreover, the celestial worthy of Samsara's attainment of Tao in this life is a little faster than in previous lives, which is very likely because Li Fan inherited the heaven-mending record and solved the hidden worries of the people in the Cloudwater Celestial Palace for him. Considering Celestial Physician's performance among Tianyu, and others before, it is almost certain that the celestial worthy of Samsara is definitely related to Celestial Physician. Even if it is not Celestial Physician himself, the relationship is definitely extraordinary. Celestial Physician is mysterious and elusive. Like the celestial worthy of teaching, he crossed the void alone, searching for the remaining fragments of the cultivation world in the dark star sea to strengthen Xuanwang. Since their last farewell, he has never contacted Li Fan again. Naturally, Li Fan would not take the initiative to contact Celestial Physician. And he also used the power of the faceless true immortal to shield the other party's perception. When one's strength reaches my level, no matter what one wants to do, it is almost inevitable to encounter people at the level of the celestial worthy of teaching and Celestial Physician. This is because Xuanwang world only has a corner left. Although I still know very little about them, fortunately. They know even less about me. Li Fan's eyes were deep. There is indeed a gap in strength, but I dare to scheme against even true immortals, so why should I be afraid of them? But I will endure for now. Although the spirit wood world was completely closed, Li Fan still knew everything that happened in the Xuanwang world. One was to peep at the various chat information of the cultivators through the origin of the heavenly mystery mirror. The second was naturally to inquire about information through the transmitter Zhou. Fellow Taoist Zhou, has something major happened in the Myriad Immortals Alliance? That highest level warning bell, and I couldn't contact you before. The transmitter Zhou's tone seemed a little weak. A transmitter companion has fallen. Li Fan pretended to be very shocked, and then quickly asked. The transmitter Zhou simply explained the reason for the matter. I knew long ago that this so-called true immortal remains was a trap. But I didn't expect that the power behind it could actually harm the transmitter. Li Fan's face was full of disbelief. Has the mastermind been caught? Are there any clues? Li Fan also asked casually. The transmitter Zhou shook his head and did not answer in detail. Li Fan did not ask further, but said solemnly, I will also report this matter to the Federation. If there are any findings, I will definitely inform fellow Taoist as soon as possible. Then I will thank you in advance. The transmitter Zhou did not seem to have any hope for Li Fan's side, and said perfunctorily. After disconnecting the communication, Li Fan began to think about who he could blame. But after thinking about it, in the vast Xuanwang world, there were actually very few people who had the strength to accomplish what Li Fan had done. The remaining few who meet the conditions, such as the Five Elders Association and the Tian sect, it is really not easy to frame them. If I am clever, I will expose myself. Li Fan sighed slightly in his heart and summarized the lessons. I still don't have enough vests. If there is another identity I am playing at this time, I can frame myself and clear my suspicions. I can pay attention to it in the future. Even though Li Fan prides himself on being resourceful, facing the current situation, he has not thought of a more suitable method other than patiently waiting for the storm to pass. The main reason is that he accidentally fell into the true immortal's net in this life and cannot immediately return to reality. So no matter what he does, he feels a little timid and unable to let go. But hiding in the depths of the netherworld and hastily returning to reality is not what Li Fan wants. The so-called situation is stronger than people. No matter how much you maneuver, there will be times when you lose room for maneuver. 1122. Hidden alone in the dark prison. However, Li Fan was very confident that he could not be found regarding the transmission of techniques and whether his past life could be traced. Not to mention the extremely complex and numerous concealment formations on the true immortal puppet, which had even faintly surpassed the reversing life and death array. In this life, no one had ever been to that frozen Dead Sea before. Yet the true immortal remains could precisely locate its position. This alone was enough to make Wang Sheng suspicious. According to common sense, he should lock his target on those old acquaintances who might have existed over the years. Even if he wants to investigate me, there is simply no way to start. The only flaw is that the true immortal puppet was transferred using the power of the netherworld. And besides the Myriad Immortal Alliance, I am the only one from the Myriad Worlds Association who has been to the netherworld. Thinking of this, Li Fan couldn't help but feel a chill in his heart. At the level of the Dharma transmission Heavenly Lord, doing things no longer requires evidence to deduce. As long as there is a glimmer of possibility, it is enough for him to make a decision. Since I have just reviewed that in the entire Xuanwang realm, there are only a few forces that can accomplish this. Then, putting myself in his shoes, as long as I eliminate them all, I can prevent future trouble. Although it seems a bit unreasonable, it is the way of doing things for a hegemon. As his thoughts turned, Li Fan's heart suddenly skipped a beat. He made a decision almost immediately. In the Spirit Wood realm, all defensive formations were activated at full power. All cultivators of the Myriad Worlds Association were prepared to fight at any time. He summoned all the main personnel from the Heavenly Mystery Realm, the Medicine King sect, the Imperial Small World, and explained the severity of the situation. Craftsmen, Lu Rushan, and others all changed their expressions slightly. Isn't this too unreasonable? Just because we have the strength to kill a Dharma transmitter, and they can't find the murderer, they want to destroy us all. Is the envoy being too pessimistic? I don't think the Myriad Immortal Alliance would be so reckless, would they? The crowd discussed, but seeing Li Fan's gradually darkening face, they all chose to shut up instantly. Through begging for the protection of the red dust compassionate immortal, I have almost confirmed this matter. No need to doubt, just prepare in advance. There is no room for reconciliation in this battle. Li Fan said coldly. Hearing this, everyone's faces turned pale. The only chance of survival is if our power of resistance is strong enough. They are conquering us to avenge the 3 Dharma transmitters, but if we can bring them not just the fall of 3 Dharma transmitters they might instead have some concerns. Li Fan encouraged. Although the Myriad Immortal Alliance is powerful, it is impossible for them to use the full power of the Alliance to attack us. In addition, we have geographical advantages. The Spirit Wood Realm is as solid as a rock, covered by countless formations, and has the barrier of the Heavenly Mystery Realm. Finally, we can also use the power of the Netherworld to attack the enemy unexpectedly with the Netherworld Tidia. Li Fan said confidently. As long as we can withstand the first and fiercest waves of attacks, we should be able to survive this crisis. Although Li Fan said so, the crowd still couldn't see any optimistic emotions on their faces. They all left with heavy hearts to mobilize for the war. The Spirit Wood Realm was completely closed, and even if they had the idea of escaping, they couldn't escape. The only option was to fight to the death. And Li Fan's Sidia. In the underground secret room, a sacred embryo that looked exactly like Li Fan was rapidly taking shape. Using the divine power of the red dust compassionate immortal to forcibly raise the sacred embryo to the nascent soul realm. The sacred embryo left the secret room and put on the heavenly sun battle puppet. As for Li Fan himself, he didn't bring anything and quietly left the Spirit Wood Realm unnoticed. Knowing that the Myriad Immortal Alliance would come to attack the Spirit Wood Realm, how could Li Fan leave his main body to fight them to the death? For Li Fan, the Myriad Worlds Association, the Spirit Wood Realm, the Heavenly Mystery Medicine Kinga. They were all just external things that could be abandoned at any time. Only his own safety was the most important. As long as he preserved his life and survived this storm. When the Dharma transmitters and Wang Sheng relaxed their vigilance in the future, he would launch the Doomsday Arrangement. After everything was truly restored, everything that was once lost would eventually return to his hands. With Li Fan's current concealment ability, he traveled all the way after leaving the Spirit Wood Realm, and no one discovered his traces from beginning to end. Li Fan had already figured out where to hide during the next period of time. The so-called hiding in plain sight, the most dangerous place is the safest place. Before long, he had arrived at his destination. It was the Myriad Immortal Alliance's nether prison, where he had previously picked up the Dharma transmitter Wei Kong. Wouldn't you say I'm throwing myself into the net? Li Fan laughed mockingly in his heart. However, this so-called nether prison net cannot stop me. After carefully observing it, Li Fan had already cracked the formation covering the entrance of the nether prison. Turning into a wisp of obscure shadow, he quietly flew into it. The scene in front of him suddenly became dim, somewhat similar to the scene of the netherworld. There was no heaven and earth, and all that could be seen was endless darkness. But compared to the thorough darkness of the netherworld, there was still some light here. At least the divine sense could barely distinguish the direction of advance, so as not to be completely lost. In the dark, endless space, there stood pillars of cages. In each pillar, there seemed to be a prisoner suppressed. On the surface of the pillars, there were also constantly changing scenes of various terrifying tortures. As for the jailers of this nether prison, they were hideous monsters composed of black mist like unknown substances floating here. There were tens of thousands of them, several times more than the tall pillars in the space. From time to time, they let out bursts of roars and flew into the pillars where prisoners were held. Before long, faint painful screams continued to echo in the cages. After tormenting for a long time, these black mist monsters left the pillars with satisfaction. Similar scenes were constantly being staged in the nether prison, as if there was no end. Li Fan looked at this scene like purgatory, but his expression did not change in the slightest. After observing the composition of the prison pillars, he determined that it was composed of some kind of formation. His eyes flickered, and he broke it almost instantly. Then he chose an empty one, but he took the initiative to drill into it. Not bad. After entering the black pillar, Li Fan looked around and found that the inside of the cage was brighter than the outside. It's just that formation attacks would fall at any time as a means of punishment. Naturally, it couldn't hurt Li Fan. I'm afraid they've searched the entire Xuanwang realm, but they wouldn't have thought that I was hiding here. And when they forget about me, it's time for me to go out. Li Fan settled down comfortably in the nether prison as if he had returned home. For him, the spirit wood realm and the nether prison were not essentially different. 1123. Leave request. I've caught a cold and have a headache with dizziness. I can't write, so there will be no update today. I apologize for the inconvenience caused by it. 1124. The Battle of Spirit Trees begins. Time seemed to lose all meaning within the prison of darkness. Each day brought only the unchanging dimness, and the ceaseless, agonizing wails that echoed in his ears. The Black Mist jailers didn't seem to be very intelligent. They simply cackled at Li Fan, the suddenly appearing prisoner, and mechanically activated the formations within the prison pillars, attempting to torment him. Naturally, Li Fan easily neutralized them all. However, he still cooperatively feigned pained screams, satisfying the Black Mist jailers and causing them to leave. Besides the low-level jailers that frequently appeared, patrolling cultivators from the 10,000 Immortals Alliance could occasionally be seen in the prison of darkness. 3 in total, taking turns to come. They usually just went through the motions when it came to inspecting the prison of darkness. After all, the prison of darkness had been peaceful for thousands of years, and had never had any incidents. However, after observing for a while, Li Fan understood. The area he was currently confined to was just the outermost layer of the prison of darkness. The 10,000 Immortals Alliance didn't seem to place much importance on the prisoners held here. Li Fan even witnessed one of his neighbors unable to withstand the torment of the formations, his soul scattering and dissipating. No one came to check for a long time afterward. It was only when the Black Mist jailers routinely patrolled that they discovered it, subsequently activating the purification formation to cleanse the Black Pillar, awaiting the arrival of the next prisoner. Li Fan was quite satisfied with the situation in the prison of darkness. The probability of being discovered was low, and no one usually bothered him. Enjoying the peace and quiet, Li Fan prepared for the final world extinction plan while observing the situation on the Spirit Wood world side through the Holy Infant. For a considerable time after Li Fan issued the order for everyone to prepare for battle and then fled, everything outside remained calm and peaceful. To the point where everyone began to murmur doubts in their hearts, questioning Li Fan's judgment. However, awed by the power of the red dust compassionate immortal, they didn't dare show it. But Li Fan knew that this was just the calm before the storm. As it turned out, Li Fan's prediction was correct. On this day, the sealing formation at the entrance of the Spirit Wood world suddenly and silently showed traces of fluctuations. The holy embryo Li Fan immediately noticed the anomaly. Focusing his mind to observe for a moment, Li Fan coldly snorted, "They do have a few tricks up their sleeves. It seems they've thoroughly studied the formations I gifted to the 10,000 Immortals Alliance. Compared to before, their formation proficiency has improved by at least a century. It's just a patia, they're still lagging behind me by more than a generation. At their snail's pace, they probably won't be able to break the formation in less than 3 months. And that's under the assumption that I won't repair the formation. But, on the other hand, the 10,000 Immortals Alliance might not have that much patience. If they can't break the formation, they'll probably attack head-on." Li Fan didn't believe that a mere formation could stop the 10,000 Immortals Alliance's army. Why not create an opening and let a batch of them in first, then catch them in a trap? In a flash of thought, Li Fan had an idea. Although the main body had already escaped for safety, Li Fan didn't completely give up resisting the 10,000 Immortals Alliance's pressure. After all, accumulating the resources of the Spirit Wood world in this life wasn't an easy task, and it had taken a lot of effort and energy. Now that the 10,000 Immortals Alliance was attacking, he certainly had to resist. It's a good opportunity to test the mettle of the 10,000 Immortals Alliance. To see if they really deserve the title of one of the 2 major ruling organizations of the Xuanwang world. The holy embryo Li Fan notified everyone in the Spirit Wood world to prepare for battle. At the same time, he cooperated with the 10,000 Immortals Alliance's formation-breaking methods, gradually releasing the formation's defenses. It looked as if the formation had really been broken. The opening grew larger and larger, and after a crack appeared in the entrance passage to the Spirit Wood world. The first attacking force of the 10,000 Immortals Alliance instantly arrived in the Spirit Wood world through these cracks. The moment they met, both sides were slightly stunned. The 10,000 Immortals Alliance was surprised that the Spirit Wood world's people seemed to have discovered their little tricks long ago and were already on high alert. And Li Fan's side was surprised that the so-called vanguard of the 10,000 Immortals Alliance wasn't some elite death squad, but hundreds of arrows radiating a cold light. Sky Patrol arrows. Li Fan was somewhat surprised. The Sky Patrol arrows were a great weapon developed by the 10,000 Immortals Alliance in this world. They were extremely fast, able to patrol an entire province in a few breaths. And their power was also very astonishing, almost equivalent to the full-force strike of an ordinary Dao integration cultivator. But that wasn't the most terrifying thing. The truly formidable aspect of the Sky Patrol arrows was that they could form a special formation with each other, creating a giant net that could even distort and affect the laws of heaven and earth. When the 10,000 Immortals Alliance fought the 5 Old Ones before, the 10,000 Immortals Alliance used the Sky Patrol arrows to interfere with the principles of heaven and earth on a large scale, preventing the eternal celestial Venerable of the 5 Old Ones from intervening in the battle. It seems the 10,000 Immortals Alliance is going to implement a decapitation tactic. If it were an ordinary small world, 168 Sky Patrol arrows would probably directly wipe out all living forces with this move. Buddha, Li Fan coldly smiled, reacting very quickly. First, he used the great formation covering the Spirit Wood world to interfere with these Sky Patrol arrows, preventing them from completing their formation. Then, he sent out Tianyang, using absolute crushing strength, to collect and suppress them one by one before these Sky Patrol arrows could scatter and cause destruction. The Sky Patrol arrows were fast, but Tianyang was even faster. Tianyang transformed into a streak of cyan light, crisscrossing back and forth across the sky. In the blink of an eye, he had already controlled them all. Take a few to study and see if this thing can be turned around and used for our own purposes, the holy embryo Li Fan said to Craftsman Jushi. Craftsman Jushi excitedly took the Sky Patrol arrows and went to disassemble and study them without stopping. And on the 10,000 Immortals Alliance's side, the inexplicable loss of contact with hundreds of Sky Patrol arrows seemed to have caught them off guard. They were stunned for a long time and didn't launch the next wave of attacks for a while. Seeing this, Li Fan's eyes darted around, and he feigned urging the repair of the ceiling formation at the entrance. Seeing that the cracks in the formation that they had, finally, managed to break open were slowly healing, the 10,000 Immortals Alliance couldn't hold back and launched another attack. This time, what appeared in front of the Spirit Wood world's people through the entrance cracks was a team of cultivators all wearing golden armor. Covered in golden light, their faces could not be seen. Even their specific positions seemed impossible to lock down. After arriving in the Spirit Wood world, the golden-armored cultivators quickly dispersed. Their speed was extremely fast, even a bit faster than the Sky Patrol arrows. The most troublesome thing was that they would leave behind afterimages on the path they flew. 1125. Talking and laughing defeats the Immortal Alliance. Whether viewed with the eyes or observed with divine sense, these golden phantoms seemed no different from genuine cultivators. It was difficult to distinguish truth from falsehood. So, in a short while, the entire sky above the Spirit Wood world was filled with the figures of these golden-armored cultivators. And their task seemed to be more than just a simple attack, but to provide the main force behind them with specific intelligence on the Spirit Wood world. What do you think of these golden armors? Li Fan asked Fang Ziji casually. Fang Ziji narrowed his eyes, carefully observing for a moment, and then said with a hint of arrogance, just a slightly more advanced illusion. I thought the Myriad Immortals Alliance had really researched battle armors that could infinitely split themselves. After a few tests, we can break the illusion and find where the real ones are. Fang Ziji said confidently. It seems that with the support of the Heavenly Calculation World's technology, the Spirit Wood world has surpassed the Myriad Immortals Alliance in the art of refining weapons. Having received a satisfactory answer, Li Fan waved his hand, indicating that Fang Ziji didn't need to test anything. Suddenly, a huge arc-shaped sphere of light appeared in the Spirit Wood world, encompassing the entire world. The surface of the sphere was covered with dense metallic stripes that constantly changed. Under Li Fan's instructions, they instantly formed rows of dark muzzles. Boom! The muzzles locked onto the golden-armored cultivators flying all over the sky. Then, countless black beams of light erupted from them. In the face of this black light exuding an aura of destruction, the golden-armored cultivators couldn't resist at all, and were instantly torn to pieces and completely disappeared into the air. With just one volley, a large portion of the countless golden phantoms were annihilated. This terrifying sight caused the movements of the remaining golden-armored cultivators to pause for a moment. Just as they were stunned, another round of bombardment arrived in an instant. In the face of the black death light, the golden armor was as fragile as paper. All the golden phantoms in the Spirit Wood world were completely wiped out. With the heavenly calculation fortress, plus the sky-splitting cannon imitated from the Myriad Immortals Alliance, there's no need to care about any fancy illusions. No matter how many there are, just eliminate them all. This is what is meant by using overwhelming force to overcome all techniques, Li Fan thought to himself. He also checked the energy stored in the heavenly calculation fortress. The heavenly calculation fortress was integrated with the spirit wood world. The countless living corpses on the square, constantly running the common people spirit origin art, and the large number of cultivators in the various small worlds, were constantly providing it with energy. After this period of accumulation, it had reached an extremely astonishing value. Li Fan estimated that the energy was enough to sustain continuous barrages of the same intensity as before for 7 days and 7 nights without running out. Whatever tricks you have left, just use them. Li Fan looked coldly at the constantly pulsating entrance crack. Having lost 2 advanced teams in succession, the Myriad Immortals Alliance seemed to have become much more cautious. This time, without much hesitation, they finally dispatched their true elite forces. Before their figures even appeared, a surge of chilling aura had already traveled from afar. The crack was suddenly widened a lot. Li Fan's heart skipped a beat, and he directly activated the defense function of the heavenly calculation fortress. In an instant, the arc-shaped light curtain shook violently, and water-like patterns flowed within it. It took a long time to dissipate this inexplicable impact. After checking, Li Fan's eyelids twitched. Because the energy stored in the heavenly calculation fortress, which he had thought was very sufficient, had actually been depleted by 1/6 in just a moment. And the Myriad Immortals Alliance troops that launched the attack had not yet appeared. What is it? Li Fan narrowed his eyes. The subordinates of the spirit wood world also sensed something, and their expressions became somewhat tense and uneasy. Upper Envoy, be careful. I'm afraid the enemy has already arrived, Lu Rushan suddenly reminded in a deep voice. Before the words were spoken, the light curtain of the heavenly calculation fortress shook violently again. This time, the magnitude was even greater than before, and the light curtain dimmed a lot as a result. It was clear that it had blocked the unknown enemy's attack for the spirit wood world again. Li Fan knew that if it weren't for the heavenly calculation fortress, the spirit wood world would probably be riddled with holes by now. But the other side had already launched 2 attacks, and the people on the spirit wood world side still hadn't figured out what type of existence they were dealing with. As expected of a huge organization that rules half of the Xuanwang world. There really are trump cards that I haven't discovered in my many reincarnations. Faced with this troublesome enemy, Li Fan was not surprised but delighted. It could be said that with this discovery, even if the spirit wood world was completely destroyed at this time, it would barely be worth it. However, the current spirit wood world has gathered the forces of many surviving immortal cultivation worlds from ancient times. It is not really so easy to perish. While everyone was confused and unable to figure out the situation, the 100 Flowers Taoist had a discovery after careful observation. I seem to have heard a friend mention this method of attack before. A fierce beast hidden in the void, feeding on the continents of the immortal cultivation world. Ordinary people cannot see its body clearly, and a single claw strike has the power to destroy the world. If I'm not mistaken, it should be a void beast named Annihilationa. In fact, it is not a true life form. It is a spontaneous operation of a certain rule manifested in the Sea of Stars, the 100 Flowers Taoist explained to everyone very quickly. The world of my friend once encountered this terrifying existence when it drifted in the void during the Great Calamity. The response method is also very simple. Annihilation is only interested in immortal cultivation worlds with life. And those barren lands without life are not even noticed by it. I just didn't expect that the Myriad Immortals Alliance could actually control this kind of fierce beast that only acts according to rules and use it to fight enemies. The 100 Flowers Taoist, who had been somewhat contemptuous of the Myriad Immortals Alliance because of their previous 2 easy failures, suddenly became extremely solemn. And when everyone heard this, their eyes lit up. Then they all looked at Li Fan. Concealing the life aura of the entire world was not a difficult thing for Li Fan. After pondering for a moment, under the constant attacks of the Annihilation Beast, the light curtain of the heavenly calculation fortress, whose energy reserves were only 1/3 left, emitted a faint silvery light. Under the double superposition of the heavenly calculation fortress and the spirit wood world's great array, the life aura of the entire world was finally faded away before the protection measures were completely destroyed. Everyone held their breath and waited. After all, it was really difficult to deal with a monster like Annihilation, which could not be seen in its normal form but was extremely fierce. Fortunately, the 100 Flowers Taoist's guess was correct. Losing its sense of life aura, the terrifying beast also seemed to have lost its target. It ceased its attacks. In the third confrontation, the Spirit Wood World won a Pyrrhic victory. 1126. Strategic Transfer. Although it could be called a Pyrrhic victory, in these three confrontations, the Spirit Wood World didn't actually suffer any significant losses, merely some accumulated energy. If the Myriad Immortal Alliance retreated at this point, or was deterred by the strength the Spirit Wood World had displayed, and temporarily suspended their attack, the Spirit Wood World would quickly be able to replenish the lost energy. However, it was clear that the Myriad Immortal Alliance wouldn't be so easily frightened off. Having lost its target, the Annihilation Beast hovered around in confusion for a while, then seemed to catch a whiff of the delicious aura of the profound yellow world from the other side of the spatial passage, and actually changed its target. The spatial rift was widened once more, and the aura that made Li Fan's heart palpitate vanished in an instant. Before the people of the Spirit Wood World could even celebrate, the entire world began to shake violently without warning. This Isa, as the master of the Spirit Wood World, Li Fan in the Nether Prison was the first to notice the abnormality. The Spirit Wood World's anchored position in the profound yellow great world is changing. Are they trying to undermine us, not confronting us head-on, but directly destroying the small world? Once, the Myriad Immortal Alliance forcibly moved the Five Elements' Great Grotto Heaven, located in the Heavenly Spirit Continent, to the central hinterland. Now, the actual size of the Spirit Wood World is actually smaller than the Five Elements' Grotto Heaven. Even with Li Fan's formation refinement and reinforcement, it probably can't stop the Myriad Immortal Alliance from moving it by force. Moreover, even though his main body was far from the battlefield, through the Holy Infant and the clones, senses of the world's tremors, Li Fan could already see what method the Myriad Immortal Alliance was using to move the world. The floating starry sky grand formation. A glint flashed in Li Fan's eyes. Li Fan had been coveting this magnificent formation, created by the Profound Heaven King and used by the Profound Yellow World to capture other cultivation worlds, for a long time. However, even though his terminus disintegration disk was almost sublimated to the level of a celestial artifact, it was still powerless against this starry sky formation and unable to forcibly deduce it. It seemed that besides the formation itself, there were also some unknown factors involved. Previously, when Li Fan asked the Heavenly Profound Mirror about the details of this formation, it repeatedly evaded the question and gave perfunctory answers about other formations. As a result, Li Fan had never seen the true face of this formation. Unexpectedly, today, he encountered it while the Spirit Wood World was being besieged. In the sea of consciousness of his main body, the disintegration disk emitted an excited, faint white light, rapidly changing and flickering. By observing a small part, one can see the whole leopard. The disintegration disk can deduce the entire formation from this fragment. Indeed, as an opponent of the Myriad Immortal Alliance, one can see more of their trump cards. Li Fan was very satisfied with the result of this test. Just as the Spirit Wood World's anchored position gradually began to shift, Li Fan's preliminary deduction with the disintegration disk had already yielded results. The Heavenly Profound Mirror didn't lie, the formation is indeed severely damaged. Currently, what the Myriad Immortal Alliance is using is the floating starry sky grand formation's ability to span the starry sea and lock onto and pull in worlds. Judging from the speed at which the Spirit Wood World is being forcibly moved, the formation's power is less than 1/10,000th of what it was when it was intact. But it can still easily absorb the entire Spirit Wood World. No, Noah, something is still missing. An unprecedented situation had occurred. The disintegration disk's deduction had actually stopped on its own. With the disintegration disk's understanding of formations, no matter how it calculated, it couldn't construct a formation with the same function as the ancient floating starry sky grand formation. This further confirmed Li Fan's previous conjecture. This floating starry sky grand formation is indeed not just a simple formation. No wonder even with the aptitude to transmit the Tao, they haven't succeeded in restoring this formation after so many years. They still have to painstakingly scavenge the wreckage of worlds in the void. Although he couldn't see the entire formation, the Myriad Immortal Alliance was also using a flawed version of its power. Under Li Fan's instructions, the panicking and bewildered people of the Spirit Wood World quickly took action. As a formation manifested on the land of the Spirit Wood World, an invisible wave enveloped the entire small world. And the Spirit Wood World, which was being dragged forward at high speed, seemed to have its connection severed in an instant. The shaking gradually lessened, and finally stopped at an unknown location. Li Fan immediately checked the current location of the Spirit Wood world. It had actually moved from the eastern part of the Myriad Immortal Alliance to the south. It wasn't far from the Great Rift Whirlpool. Are they planning to use the natural power of the rift to directly shatter the world? The Myriad Immortal Alliance is really playing a good game. The Spirit Wood world's ability to neutralize the power of the floating starry sky was truly far beyond the Myriad Immortal Alliance's expectations. A division seemed to have occurred internally, and they didn't continue their attack. But Li Fan could vaguely sense that Immortal Alliance cultivators were constantly emerging in the surrounding void, surrounding the Spirit Wood world. The 100 Flowers Taoist and the Medicine King sect and others also noticed the current situation, and their faces became somewhat unsightly. This is what is called a desperate struggle. It seems that I didn't consider things thoroughly enough in this life. The next time I build a Spirit Wood world base, perhaps I can add the ability to instantly teleport the entire small world. Before today, it would have been somewhat difficult to do this. But with the Myriad Immortal Alliance's demonstration, Humpha, Li Fan sneered in his heart. All the blades aimed at Li Fan will be returned 100-fold. Envoy, I think we can't just sit here and wait for death anymore, Lu Ruchun suggested in a deep voice. Although the Spirit Wood world's various defensive measures are perfect, they definitely can't withstand the Myriad Immortal Alliance's endless consumption. Perhaps rushing out and fighting to the death might offer a glimmer of hope. After these years of modification, the Medicine King True Cauldron's internal capacity has expanded several times, and it should be able to take most people with us, Fang Ziji added. Lu Ruchun's opinion was approved by the vast majority of people. They all looked at the holy infant Li Fan. If you keep the people, you keep the land, if you lose the people, you lose both. Since that's the case, everyone should prepare to move, Li Fan nodded in agreement to everyone's plan. The crowd immediately responded with a loud agreement and dispersed. One part was responsible for monitoring the spatial passage entrance to deal with possible sneak attacks by the Myriad Immortal Alliance. The other part was responsible for quickly transferring the resources and population of the Myriad Worlds United Association. In fact, if the Spirit Wood world's anchored position hadn't shifted, Li Fan had previously prepared a plan to abandon part to save the whole. That was to transfer to the connected small worlds such as the Empire and the Rift World. Then destroy the spatial passage. Although it wouldn't completely prevent the Myriad Immortal Alliance from tracking them, it could delay them for a few days. But unfortunately, during the process of being transferred just now, the Spirit Wood world's own position shifted, causing all the passages to the affiliated small worlds to be severed. Now, if they wanted to retreat, the only possible direction was to force a bloody path out of the Myriad Immortal Alliance's encirclement. 1127. If there is a grudge, it must be avenged. Our branch established in the River of Blood has not yet been discovered. If we are fortunate enough to escape, we can rendezvous there. The River of Blood's power has special properties and should effectively isolate us from the Myriad Immortal Alliance's tracking. Li Fan had already thought of countermeasures after escaping and told Lu Ruchun, Baihu a Taoist, and other core members of the Union. Regarding how the specific location of the Spirit Wood realm was exposed, Li Fan actually had a vague answer in his heart. But now is not the time for reckoning. Li Fan also didn't utter any cold words telling them to rather die than surrender. With the power of the faceless true immortal binding them, even if they wanted to surrender, they probably couldn't. Just as the people of the Spirit Wood realm were preparing for a desperate gamble, the holy embryo Li Fan quietly came to the faceless true immortal statue. The statue was just a carrier. The power of the true immortal had already been revived through the growing network of Union members. But there is no doubt that, compared to other ordinary members, he should value his statue more. Actually, I could choose to throw the statue out, letting the Myriad Immortal Alliance face the power of the true immortal head-on. Buddha this method can only be used once. I'm still counting on him to fight against the immortals of the immortal ruins later. Under the holy embryo Li Fan's deep gaze, the faceless statue slowly became transparent. Then it disappeared. Nether prison. Li Fan looked expressionlessly at the statue slowly emerging from nothing in front of him. Wherever the true immortal's network covers, the power of the true immortal can naturally flow freely. He had previously bestowed cultivation and knowledge to the Union members through this method. It was just that this was his first time trying to transfer a physical object. If I really choose to completely rely on the faceless true immortal, dedicating myself without reservation and becoming a true envoy of the true immortal, then with the help of the vast power of the true immortal, Perhaps I could achieve the transfer of the entire spirit wood realm in an instant. Li Fan stared at the statue, thinking like this. The arrival of the true immortal statue did not cause any changes to the nether prison. After hiding within it, Li Fan put away the statue and refocused his attention on the spirit wood realm. The union members were hastily preparing to evacuate. The holy embryo Li Fan was calmly setting up a formation. Sensing the figure appearing behind him, Li Fan's movements paused slightly. Upper envoy, is this really necessary? The one who came was the spirit of the giant tree of the spirit wood realm, Lin Ling. Once this formation is activated, I'm afraid everything in the spirit wood realm will be reduced to ashes. Lin Ling looked at the silver lines that were faintly visible on the ground, her face pale. Li Fan smiled. We are making a strategic transfer. How can we let the Myriad Immortal Alliance take advantage of such fertile land in the spirit wood realm for nothing? Of course, we must destroy it. As for you, I haven't paid attention to it for a while, but your formation skills have improved quite a bit. You can actually see the purpose of my formation. Li Fan's gaze swept over Lin Ling. Lin Ling pursed her lips. I don't have that ability. It's just that I am connected to the spirit wood, and I have some feelings in the face of life and death crisis. We will return one day, right? Even if we temporarily give this place to the Myriad Immortal Alliance, so what? I believe that under the leadership of the upper envoy, that day will not be too long. Who would have thought that the ignorant tree spirit of the past would actually say such euphemistic words of persuasion? The holy embryo's movements in setting up the formation couldn't help but pause slightly. After a moment of silence, Li Fan asked, the Myriad Immortal Alliance was able to lock down the specific location of our spirit wood realm so quickly. There should be a traitor among us. Do you have any clues? Lin Ling's body trembled suddenly, and she exclaimed, it's not me. Li Fan glanced at her. If it were you, could you still be standing in front of me speaking so calmly? Lin Ling immediately felt relieved and let out a long sigh of relief. Having witnessed the spirit wood realm from nothing to something, as well as Li Fan's various methods over the years, she really didn't have any thoughts of betrayal. Compared to Li Fan, those people in the Xuanwang realm outside seemed much simpler. Offending the Myriad Immortal Alliance will not necessarily lead to death. But offending Li Fan, Lin Ling wiped the sweat from her forehead, thought for a while, and quickly replied, actually, it's not necessarily that a traitor has appeared in our union. Although the entrance to the spirit wood realm is hidden, it cannot be concealed from everyone in the world. At least, I know one who is very clear about this. And Lin Ling carefully looked at Li Fan, and then said softly, it seems that he has some grievances with you, upper envoy. Li Fan's eyes narrowed suddenly. Are you saying, the ancient tree of the earth vein? Lin Ling nodded. When I had a good relationship with him before, the process of frequently entering and leaving the spirit wood realm was seen by him. Although we broke contact later, the location of our spirit wood realm has never changed. Moreover, wherever the earth vein goes, his eyes can reach more importantly, I could vaguely feel the gaze cast by the ancient tree of the earth vein before. But since the Myriad Immortal Alliance attacked us, his peeping gaze has never appeared again. It's like having a guilty conscience. If he didn't inform, and we have a grudge against him, he would probably be gloating over our deaths at this moment. Lin Ling analyzed with reason and evidence. Li Fan nodded slightly upon hearing this. You have done well. Let's leave the spirit wood realm for now. The holy embryo Li Fan stopped the progress of setting up the formation. One should look at someone with new eyes after 3 days of separation. It would have been better if you could have reminded me earlier. Looking at Lin Ling, Li Fan encouraged her. Lin Ling's face was flushed with excitement. After driving away Lin Ling and letting her prepare to escape, Li Fan looked far outside the spirit wood realm. Like his ancestors, they are all so vengeful. Coincidentally, so am I. Li Fan still agreed with Lin Ling's deduction. After all, the entrance to the spirit wood realm was extremely hidden, and only a few knew about it. After excluding them one by one, the target can be quickly locked. As for the possibility that Lin Ling was an internal spy, and all her inferences were fabricated to clear her own suspicion, Li Fan believed in his own judgment. And he also believed in his own ability to see people. Ancient tree of the earth vein relying on being integrated with the earth vein, he is so bold and reckless. HMPH. In an instant, Li Fan had already thought of how to deal with him. Ruo Mu is very greedy for those descendants who stayed on the ground back then. If I can send him a great gift, maybe I can improve our relationship. However, punishing the ancient tree of the earth vein will have to wait until the next life. Li Fan temporarily remembered this revenge, waiting for the people of the spirit wood realm to prepare almost. He summoned Lu Rushan and others again. After rushing out, you follow behind Tian Yang. Form this formation. Li Fan solemnly taught the formation to the people of the spirit wood realm. 1128. The Puppet of the Heavenly Lord. Although it was a formation Li Fan had just deduced, it was tailor-made for the people of the spirit wood world. Using the Heavenly Yang Immortal puppet as its core, and relying on its longevity realm defensive capabilities, it maximized the combat power of everyone else. This formation also had an effect similar to soul burning, capable of fully stimulating the potential of the cultivators within the formation in a short period of time, albeit at the cost of burning their divine souls. Before leaving with the assembled formation, Saint Infant Li Fan took one last look at the spirit wood world. The next life will be better. Then, without the slightest bit of reluctance, he led everyone out of the spirit wood world. Originally, they thought they would encounter a heavy encirclement by the myriad Immortal Alliance. However, to Li Fan and the others' surprise, there was nothing outside the spirit wood world's void. However, what was strange was that the feeling of being constantly monitored, which had been lingering in everyone's hearts, was still present. Be careful, 100 Flowers Taoist was the first to speak up, reminding everyone. Her face was pale, and there was actually cold sweat flowing from her forehead. Even when facing Li Fan's coercion before, she had never been so embarrassed or lost her composure. Because what she had felt from Li Fan before was merely pure killing intent. But now pure evil. Lu Rushan and the others from the Medicine King sect were also on high alert, as if facing a great enemy. Even though the front seemed empty and unguarded, they all stopped their charge in unison. Including Li Fan, who was leading the way. Because their intuition told them that as soon as they charged forward, they would die. As if being targeted by a natural enemy, everyone's bodies stiffened, and they did not dare to act rashly. Just then, Heavenly Yang's voice entered Li Fan's ears. Ahead, Longevity Realm, strange, brief and solemn. Falling into Saint Infant Li Fan's ears, it was like a thunderclap. Longevity Realm, has the law-transmitting one come? His heart seemed to be clenched tightly, and even Li Fan's main body, hidden in the nether prison, couldn't help but have his aura disturbed. That's right. The Myriad Immortal Alliance had long known about the existence of Longevity Realm experts in the Myriad Worlds Union. After the initial probing, they naturally wouldn't send people to their deaths meaninglessly, but would directly use decisive force to finalize the matter. Buddha, to avenge a few law transmitters, he would actually personally take action. Isn't that too demeaning? Li Fan was clearly caught off guard by the appearance of the law-transmitting Heavenly Lord. But immediately afterward, all sorts of doubts arose in his heart. Judging from the law-transmitting Heavenly Lord's previous attitude towards the law-transmitters, it was clear that he only regarded them as tools. Perhaps he had some special feelings for law-transmitter Zhang, but the other law-transmitters were probably no different from ordinary cultivators in the Xuanwang world in his eyes. Would the law-transmitting one personally appear to crusade for the sake of a mere 3 law-transmitters? Li Fan naturally didn't believe it. Moreover, Li Fan had once felt the law-transmitting Heavenly Lord's vast and mighty power. His aura was sacred, vast, and unfathomable. It definitely had nothing to do with the evil that was surrounding them at this moment. If it's not the law-transmitting one, who could it be? The longevity Heavenly Lords of the Xuanwang world are nothing more than a few. Excluding the 5 Heavenly Lords of the 5 Elders' Council, it couldn't possibly be Rebirth, who had just attained enlightenment. As his thoughts raced, a name that had been suppressed in the depths of his memory and almost forgotten suddenly appeared in Li Fan's mind. Eastern Extremity Heavenly Lord. Eastern Extremity Heavenly Lord. Regarding his records, even after searching through the entire Myriad Immortal Alliance's books, there were only a few sentences. His life seemed to have been deliberately erased. The only thing that could be known was that the body-cleansing spirit pool, which is now used by the Myriad Immortal Alliance to remove mortal impurities from the bodies of mortals, was invented by him. Other than that, there was nothing else. A generation of longevity Heavenly Lord, and the only Heavenly Lord in the Myriad Immortal Alliance besides the law-transmitting one. To actually receive this kind of treatment was truly bizarre and unimaginable. If it wasn't his own request, then what happened to him would be very worthy of pondering. Moreover, the longevity heavenly lords of the Xuanwang world are all named after their rebellious Tao. Only this eastern extremity seemed to be just his name. In a moment, countless thoughts flashed through Li Fan's mind. And the evil thoughts that were watching them covetously also launched an attack on the people of the spirit wood world. The power of a heavenly lord was truly different from that of ordinary cultivators. The heavenly young immortal puppet, whose body originally exuded a clear white light, suddenly seemed to be stained with a trace of ominous aura. The light flickered uncertainly, and Heavenly Yang's expression was serious, as if he was competing with that aura. The surface of the puppet's body was stained with black spots, scattered here and there. The attack of the evil aura bypassed the protection of Li Fan's formation and simultaneously landed on everyone in the spirit wood world. Not everyone had the capital to fight against a longevity heavenly lord. In the blink of an eye, they were eroded. And Li Fan also saw the consequences of being completely corrupted by the evil aura. Their pupils disappeared, and their eye sockets were filled with darkness. At the same time, they instantly launched attacks on their companions around them, clearly having completely lost their minds. Almost instantly, the Spirit Wood World's team was already in chaos, with signs of collapse. And the enemy hidden in the darkness still did not show himself. Is this the true combat power of a longevity heavenly lord? Defeat is acceptable, but to not even see his true face. Amidst the chaos, Li Fan's expression did not fluctuate in the slightest, he only looked at Heavenly Yang. A dazzling crimson suddenly emerged from Heavenly Yang's body. Like a great sun in the sky, illuminating the surrounding dark space. Heavenly Yang's entire life is not weaker than anyone. The Heavenly Yang immortal puppet's body instantly expanded hundreds of millions of times. Like a flame giant that created the world, it stood in the dark void. Circles of scarlet flames erupted from his body, constantly spreading outwards, wanting to burn the entire space to ashes. Under the scorching of the Heavenly Yang flames, the Spirit Wood World's allies were unharmed. Those cultivators who had been eroded by the evil aura turned into black ash amidst extremely piercing screams. And the culprit who had been hiding in the darkness was finally forced to reveal his figure. The situation before him caused Saint Infant Li Fan's eyes to narrow slightly. A tall, naked man stood in the air. His black hair reached his ankles, and his body was covered with black patterns that exuded an evil aura. And behind the naked man, countless threads could still be vaguely seen, appearing from the void and deeply piercing into the man's body. The naked man's eyes were completely black, and his face was expressionless. Just like those cultivators who had their minds controlled. Longevity Heavenly Lord, a puppet on strings. This bizarre scene caused uncontrollable chills to rise in the hearts of everyone in the Spirit Wood world. And Li Fan even gasped. This Isa, the inexplicably missing eastern extremity Heavenly Lord has actually become like this. Although he didn't die, he's living worse than death. Who did this? Those law transmitters of the Myriad Immortal Alliance certainly don't have this ability. The only possibility is the law transmitting one. In the nether prison, Li Fan's main body subconsciously clenched his fists. 1129. The battle between the two heavenly lords. The instant Li Fan saw the black-haired, naked man, he was almost certain of his identity. It should be the missing eastern extremity celestial venerable. But for a dignified eternal celestial venerable to be turned into a puppet-like existence. How could it not inspire fear? No wonder almost no information about the eastern extremity can be found. Not even through Mo Rubin, who sees the body of the Dharma transmitter and inherited all his memories, or the celestial mystery mirror. No wonder the celestial venerable took action, yet all the Myriad Immortals Alliance cultivators retreated. Such secrets are too terrifying. If they didn't leave, they would probably be silenced. Although controlled, the eastern extremity seemed to retain some instinct. Faced with the crimson flames erupted by Heavenly Sun, who also possessed eternal realm battle power, the long hair on his back suddenly lengthened, transforming into dark giant beasts that extinguished the flames. Heavenly Sun didn't hesitate in the slightest. With a ripple in space, he instantly appeared beside the eastern extremity. Before the figure of the Pengu giant, the eastern extremity looked like an ant. The crimson flames burning on Heavenly Sun's body almost distorted the surrounding space. However, the eastern extremity was completely unaffected. As if existing independently of this space itself. His lips parted slightly, as if he said something. A large chunk of Heavenly Sun's body instantly and inexplicably caved in. The puppet body inevitably shook violently. Heavenly Son let out a roar, his body returning to its original state. Then, with a bang, he transformed into countless sparks, surging towards the black-haired eastern extremity. Crimson fire was like a dragon, incinerating everything. Countless black hairs separated from the eastern extremity also began to burn. The fire spread towards the main body. Just then, the eastern extremity's dark eyes shifted slightly. Those black hair monsters, which had originally turned to ashes, actually reappeared from the flames. Even though Heavenly Son's crimson fire incinerated them several times, they could always revive. Even the transformed black hair couldn't be completely harmed, let alone the eastern extremity's main body. Although Heavenly Son roared, unwilling to accept it, he couldn't change this fact. Heavenly Son has the power of the eternal realm, but it was forcibly transformed through the essence of source power. He doesn't possess the true divine abilities of the eternal realm. Bullying Tao harmonization cultivators is naturally effortless. But against a true eternal celestial venerable, he's simply not a match. Li Fan secretly shook his head. Moreover, this eastern extremity celestial venerable doesn't seem to be weak either. The pressure he brings is even stronger than senior sister Zhao. During the battle between the two eternal realm experts just now, Li Fan faintly sensed traces of the operation of the principles of heaven and earth. Especially when those black hair monsters revived from the flames, it was especially strong. Is this the principle that the eastern extremity defies? After pondering, Li Fan vaguely thought of something. Reversing the principles of the development and change of things. Is this why the Dharma transmitter used such ruthless methods against the eastern extremity? If the eastern extremity fully proves the Tao, it's very likely that he will directly reverse the rules set by the Dharma transmitter in the Xuanwang world. With Li Fan's repeated experiences of glimpsing the heavenly Tao, his keen awareness of the principles of heaven and earth is almost no less than that of any Tao harmonization cultivator. Such close and detailed observation should not lead to any problems with the deductions. Able to create a pure body spiritual pula for mortals, this eastern extremity is probably a person like Mr. Bai. It's just a pity. Not only forgotten by the world, but even living a life worse than death, reduced to the Myriad Immortals Alliance's last trump card puppet. Li Fan shook his head slightly. This is the fate of the weak. But it will never be my destiny. Dharma Transmitter Celestial Venerable, HMPH. The Spirit Wood World people couldn't intervene in the battle between Heavenly Son and the Eastern Extremity. Even if they wanted to help, they were powerless. Even if everyone joined forces and was amplified by Li Fan's formation, it was still the same. Before even approaching the battlefield, their spiritual power was boiling and their aura was disordered by the shockwaves of the battle. Is this the eternal realm? Everyone's expression was complicated. A hint of despair also emerged in the depths of their eyes. Saint Embryo Li Fan's heart was unwavering, accurately making judgments. Although Heavenly Son can currently persevere, the ending is already destined. It seems there's no escape. But being able to witness the deepest secrets hidden by the Myriad Immortals Alliance is definitely worth it. I just don't know who is manipulating the eastern extremity behind the scenes in the Myriad Immortals Alliance. Dharma Transmitter Zhang, or that Emperor Sanmo. Heavenly Son, gradually falling into defeat, tried to attack the thousands of invisible threads behind the eastern extremity after receiving Li Fan's reminder. Attempting to find out information about the manipulator behind the scenes. It was just a pity that the power of these invisible threads was obviously even higher than that of the Eastern Extremity Celestial Venerable. How could Heavenly Son possibly probe their secrets? Failing miserably, Heavenly Son once again let out an unwilling roar. Within the nether prison, feeling that the Saint Embryo's side was completely out of contact, Li Fan's main body, who had been somewhat leisurely, couldn't help but become a little heavy-hearted for a time. The complete annihilation of the Spirit Wood world demonstrated how huge the gap was between the high-end combat power of the Xuanwang world. But what Li Fan cared about more was the information hidden behind it. To be able to concoct a not weak eternal realm expert to such an extent. Originally, I had infinitely and as much as possible overestimated the Dharma transmitter's strength. But now it seems that the Dharma transmitter's strength is even more terrifying than I imagined. Even without ascension to immortality, he's probably infinitely close. He can't be evaluated using the Aeternala realm anymore. If he's in the Xuanwang world. Li Fan frowned. I'm afraid that even in the competition between the two true immortals, he may not be without the ability to save the Xuanwang world. This possibility cannot be ruled out indeed. It seems that my world-destroying plan in this life will have to be postponed for a while longer. Fortunately, time passes quickly in this nether prison. Li Fan's complex mood finally slowly calmed down. While reviewing the various experiences of this life, Li Fan was preparing for the final plan. Time passed, and I don't know how long it had been. The arrival of a new prisoner in the nether prison awakened Li Fan from his closed-door cultivation. Both arms were chopped off, and only one eye remained. The newcomer looked extremely miserable, with disheveled hair and a face covered in dried blood. But it was Li Fan's old acquaintance, Ko Hong. His inseparable brother Dao Xuanzi, however, did not come here together for some reason. Even while being escorted, Ko Hong still did not yield. He cursed and swore, venting his hatred for the Myriad Immortals alliance. Li Fan listened for a long time before he understood. It turned out that since the headquarters of the Myriad Worlds United Association in the Spirit Wood world was uprooted, those United Association members scattered in various places had also been ruthlessly hunted. 1130. The faithful followers of the true Immortal. Strictly speaking, Ko Hong and Dao Xuanzi were not members of the Myriad Realms Union. They were merely members of the Kong Yun Mutual Aid Society, the Union's predecessor. Ever since the Kong Yun Mutual Aid Society was destroyed by the transmitter, they had lost contact with Li Fan. It was only because they shared the same unwavering faith in the Hongqian compassionate immortal that they were vaguely aware of the Union's existence. Now that the Union had been destroyed, as long as they kept their mouths shut, the fact that they had once received immense favors from the Union would not be exposed. However, these two were truly men of temperament. After hearing the Myriad Immortals Alliance's announcement to exterminate the Union, they were not afraid or concealed their past. Instead, they did everything they could to assassinate cultivators belonging to the Myriad Immortals Alliance. Although they knew that cultivators would be resurrected under the power of the rebirth Heavenly Venerate, they were determined to do so in order to repay Li Fan's kindness back then. In this life, they received guidance from Li Fan. Dao Xuanzi used the Kanghai Pearl to establish his foundation, and Ko Hong used the 10,000 Mountains Cauldron to establish his foundation. Over the years, their progress had been rapid, and they had already reached the middle stage of the Golden Core realm. But in the face of the behemoth that was the Myriad Immortals Alliance, they were merely ants. After only killing a dozen or so unimportant Immortal Alliance cultivators, they were quickly surrounded by the Myriad Immortals Alliance's Protector Hall cultivators who had rushed over. Dao Xuanzi was unwilling to be a prisoner and laughed as he self-detonated and died. Ko Hong originally wanted to follow Dao Xuanzi, but was stopped by the Immortal Alliance cultivators. After having his arms cut off and one eye destroyed, he was sent to the Nether prison by the Myriad Immortals Alliance to be suppressed for eternity. Enjoy your glib tongue while you still can. I hope you'll still be so tough after you've enjoyed the torment of the formations here, the Myriad Immortals Alliance cultivator who escorted him sneered, not angered by Ko Hong's constant abuse. Ko Hong continued to curse incessantly. And Ko Hong's subsequent performance was even somewhat beyond Li Fan's expectations. Li Fan was all too clear about the power of the formations within the Nether prison's high pillars. Ordinary people simply couldn't endure this endless torment for long. They would instinctively cry out for mercy. But this Ko Hong, even when he was tormented to the point of being on the verge of death and his consciousness was blurred, the slight angry curses in his mouth never stopped. While there is the factor of the faceless true immortal's brainwashing, it is also related to Ko Hong's own firm will. Once he decides on something, he must complete it. Even if he dies, he will have no regrets. When Li Fan first met them, it was clear that as long as they joined the Myriad Immortals Alliance and worked hard as laborers for more than 10 years, they could earn a golden core cultivation technique. But they were unwilling. They would rather risk their lives to explore the sect's ruins. Later, after finding a nascent soul true technique, the two who were as close as brothers fought to the death for a chance at enlightenment. And in this life, Li Fan saved their lives from the mutated immortal mortal miasma, and then they joined the Mutual Aid Society, becoming sincere seekers of the Hongqian compassionate immortal. These examples all illustrate the characters of the two very well. He's a moldable talent, and can be used by me. At the very least, he should be easier to use than those so-called geniuses. Li Fan looked at Ko Hong, who was not far away and still had a determined look on his face even in his coma, and a trace of approval flashed in his eyes. When the Spirit Wood realm was about to be destroyed in this life, and Li Fan led the Union to escape, everyone's performance was seen by him. Those mountain and river pavilion prodigies who had been turned against them by Shangti and Si, even though they had already sworn an oath before the faceless true immortal statue, did not show any intention of living and dying with the Union at the critical moment of life and death. Instead, they showed regret and wanted to escape and surrender. Loyalty alone made them far inferior to Ko Hong. Thinking like this, an inconspicuous ray of light penetrated the prison pillar and flew towards Ko Hong, who was unconscious not far away. The ferocious expression on Ko Hong's face instantly relaxed a lot. And when Ko Hong woke up and noticed something extra in his mind, a strange look flashed in his eyes. However, he still pretended to be unconvinced and angrily denounced the Myriad Immortals Alliance's various shameless acts. At the same time, he began to study the knowledge he had just obtained. This is detailed explanation of formations. And it's still the formation that makes up this nether prison cage. How could it appear in my mind? After a long while, Ko Hong's mind was shaken violently, and he forcibly resisted the urge to look around. If this detailed explanation of formations is true, then I want to escape from here. It's as easy as flipping my hand. Having experienced too many things, Ko Hong was much calmer than before. He didn't believe it easily, but instead temporarily began to study the contents of this detailed explanation of formations. Although he had only roughly studied formations before, this detailed explanation of formations was thorough and easy to understand, and Ko Hong's own aptitude was not bad. 7 days later, Ko Hong had barely made it through the entrance. At the same time, a trace of doubt flashed in his heart. Could it be a trap? This is obviously a place used by the Myriad Immortals Alliance to imprison important criminals. How could the formations used to guard them be so simple? I, a beginner, can break it after only studying it for a few days. Ko Hong tried to break the formation silently. At this moment, his body was extremely weak, and the spiritual power in his body was suppressed and could not be used. But Ko Hong still used his best efforts to exert his spiritual power fluctuations, which had a slight impact on the prison formation. The change that this brought was that when the nether prison warden activated the formation again to torment Ko Hong, the pain that Ko Hong felt was reduced by a few points. It's actually true. Ko Hong was overjoyed in his heart despite the pain. But he quickly calmed down and began to think about the origin of this detailed explanation of formations in his mind. I'm just a small golden core cultivator, the Myriad Immortals Alliance doesn't need to act with me. And the level shown in the words of this detailed explanation of formations far exceeds the Myriad Immortals Alliance. A sacred name instantly appeared in Ko Hong's mind. Hongchen Compassionate Immortal. At the same time, a surge of heat emerged from Ko Hong's body, circulating between his limbs. In an instant, it broke the Myriad Immortals Alliance's restrictions, nourishing and repairing Ko Hong's broken body, while also rapidly improving his cultivation. Noticing the earth-shattering changes in his body in an instant, Ko Hong's body stiffened, and he didn't dare to show any abnormalities for fear of being discovered by others. In fact, his heart was already filled with tears. The great and benevolent Hongchen True Immortal had not abandoned him after all. The union has been destroyed, and now there are probably not many true immortal believers in the world. I'm deep in prison, but the true immortal suddenly sends down a method of escape. Thinking about it, Ko Hong's eyes suddenly lit up. He quickly lowered his head to hide the excitement in his heart. I understand. The Myriad Immortals Alliance destroyed the Union. This is an irreconcilable hatred. The enemy of my enemy is my friend. Those imprisoned here are all mortal enemies of the Myriad Immortals Alliance. If I let them all out. 1131. The Immortal Alliance is overthrown in prison. Perhaps, I can even convert them into followers of the compassionate True Immortal. Looking at the countless prisoners around him, wailing in agony under the Array's tortures, Ko Hong felt empathy and mused to himself. However, this is, after all, a strictly guarded prison. To achieve this, I need to plan carefully. Ko Hong's eyes flickered, and he once again masked himself with the same angry rebukes. But this time, he deliberately made himself appear intermittent and weak. As if he was about to give up. In the following period, Ko Hong used his apparent complete surrender to divert the prison guard's attention away from himself. Meanwhile, he frantically studied the detailed explanations of the array and secretly accumulated and improved his strength. He had already realized it. That gift from the compassionate True Immortal, the inexplicable warm current in his body, was actually the cultivation that cultivators dreamed of. In conventional understanding, only cultivators who practiced diligently day and night could accumulate it, making it the driving force for improving their realm. But at this moment, it was like water from a source, continuously irrigating his body. And his strength was rapidly increasing at an unimaginable and terrifying speed because of this. In just half a month, he had directly broken through to the Golden Core completion stage. This made Ko Hong even more convinced that these incredible miracles happening to him were definitely the compassionate true immortal's gift. You must know, it took him over 200 years to cultivate from immortal to the mid-stage of the golden core. But now, breaking through realms was just a blink of an eye. Originally, Ko Hong thought that the golden core completion stage was already the limit. But what happened next completely shattered his understanding and made him understand what true immortal power was. As everyone knows, to break through from the golden core realm to the nascent soul realm, one needs to devour the Xuanwang realm's blessed land. At this moment, Ko Hong was still in the nether prison, so naturally, he could not meet this condition. However, 3 days later, something happened that horrified Ko Hong. Because when he circulated his spiritual power and inspected himself, he found a faint, illusory image of a blessed land emerging in his dantian. After a more careful perception, Ko Hong confirmed that this illusory image of the blessed land was not an illusion. But it really existed. A blessed land was being born within his body. Needless to say, this was another gift from the compassionate true immortal. Ko Hong quickly and easily accepted this point. With the help of this newly born blessed land, he officially broke through to the nascent soul realm a month later. The various anomalies caused by the breakthrough were perfectly concealed by the power of the true immortal that emerged in his body, not attracting the attention of the nether prison guards. Ko Hong looked at his hands, feeling like he was in a dream. The nascent soul realm, a realm he only dared to dream of in the past, had been so easily achieved by him. Supreme compassionate true immortal, I, Ko Hong, do not know what virtues or abilities I possess to receive such great love from you. I will definitely complete your instructions, even if it means dying 10,000 times. Ko Hong in the shadows looked at the countless towering nether prisons around him, his eyes gradually firming. After entering the nascent soul realm, Ko Hong's strength continued to increase automatically every day. But his main attention had been focused on breaking the array and rescuing the prisoners in the nether prison. It's really difficult to accomplish this by myself. But where can I find helpers in this prison? Ko Hong secretly observed the neighbors around him, selecting suitable partners. Thus, an unknown amount of time passed. On this day, Li Hong looked at the message from Ko Hong and couldn't help but smile slightly. But he just pretended not to see it and did not give any response. Ko Hong continued to try a few more times, unwilling to give up, but finally had to choose to give up helplessly. Could it be that I misjudged? It shouldn't be. Just as Ko Hong was in trouble, a newly arrived prisoner immediately attracted his attention. This person was not a member of the Myriad Worlds Association, but was imprisoned here for violating the Immortal Alliance's laws. Judging from the crimes he committed, he probably had no chance of getting out in this lifetime. Now you insects want to die and offset your sins at every turn. It's not that easy. I will make you beg for death and rot and worry in this dark nether prison for the rest of your life. The Myriad Immortals Alliance cultivator responsible for escorting him said, gnashing his teeth. And the prisoner remained silent. But the look in his eyes towards the other party was full of disdain and killing intent. But soon, under the suppression of the cruel array, all of this turned into screams. People's subconscious words in extreme pain are always closest to their innermost thoughts. Ko Hong listened to this new neighbor's words for several days and determined that he was indeed a cooperative partner. One day, after waiting for him to be tortured to the point of being on the verge of death, he secretly penetrated the array and transmitted a message. The other party opened his eyes instantly, wanting to determine Ko Hong's location. Obviously, it was all in vain. After some communication between the two sides, Ko Hong also learned his name. Zhang Fu. He didn't commit any major crime, but he swallowed 1/3 of the annual profit of the Mo Lingzhou Hall. In the past, even if something like this came to light, as long as you spent some contribution points and found some connections, you could spend money to avoid disaster. And it would be over. But this time, it was unfortunate that one of his mortal enemies somehow learned about this and directly reported it to the Immortal Alliance headquarters. The Myriad Immortals Alliance headquarters' response this time was also unusually swift. Before Zhang Fu had time to dredge up relationships, the headquarters envoy had already arrived. After a simple investigation, the evidence was conclusive, and he was arrested on the spot. Even the previously stipulated re-examination procedure was not followed, and he was directly taken to the nether prison and suppressed. Zhang Fu then realized that he should have been framed. Originally, he thought that he would be doomed forever, but he did not expect to encounter a turning point. Help release the criminals in the nether prison. This is a capital crime. Although everyone can be reincarnated now, I heard before I came in that the Myriad Immortals Alliance seems to have reached some kind of agreement with that rebirth heavenly venerate. Those who commit unforgivable sins in the Immortal Alliance will lose the opportunity to be reincarnated and truly die. For example, the members of the Myriad Worlds Association before seemed to be like this. Not noticing the tremor in Ko Hong's body not far away, Zhang Fu continued to say to himself, although being imprisoned here, with no chance of going out forever. But it's always better than really falling. Maybe one day we will wait for the Myriad Immortals Alliance to grant amnesty to the world. Zhang Fu did not agree at first, and even secretly thought about reporting this conspirator and making amends for his sins. But the other party's words next changed his mind. Here, death is a relief. If you don't believe it, you can look at the people around you and you will know. 1132. The Great Array of All Realms. Zhang Fu had long heard of the terrors of the U prison. And in the round of cruel torture he had just experienced, he deeply felt the horror of the punishments here. After hearing Ko Hong's words and witnessing several cultivators being tortured into madness and inhumanity, he knew very well that he could never endure the tortures here. So he decisively agreed to Ko Hong. If things really don't work out, I can always go back on my word and sell this person out, Zhang Fu thought to himself. However, all his little calculations turned to nothing after he followed Ko Hong in reciting a vow. A compassionate true immortal. At first, Zhang Fu didn't care about this so-called true immortal, but later, whenever the thought of betrayal arose in his mind, a strange feeling of impending disaster would always arise spontaneously. Only then did Zhang Fu finally realize that he had really boarded a pirate ship. Next, Ko Hong and Zhang Fu slowly began their infiltration plan in U prison. Every newly imprisoned prisoner, after being subjected to inhuman torture and on the verge of mental collapse, would be approached by Ko Hong at the right time. Under the light of the compassionate true immortal's divine power, these prisoners grabbed onto it like a last straw, joining the Joint Escape Organization without any hesitation. And those prisoners who had been imprisoned for a long time but still maintained basic self-awareness became Ko Hong's main targets for United Front work. However, these cultivators had been imprisoned for too long, and some were suspicious and unwilling to trust anyone easily. It took a lot of time and experience to complete each persuasion. Fortunately, all the newly joined members of the organization also participated. So the progress of infiltrating U prison was not too slow. 3 years later, the intermittent wails in U prison concealed the private exchanges of the escape organization members. Brother Ko, how long do we have to wait? Yes, except for the deepest part of U prison, other areas have basically been captured by the brothers. On the surface, this place still seems to be under the control of the Myriad Immortals Alliance. In fact, as long as Brother Ko gives an order, U prison will change hands in an instant. Over the years, with the blessing of the compassionate true immortal's divine power, we have all recovered our strength. Some brothers have even gone a step further. 1 Tao integration, 16 nascent soul, hundreds of core formation. In comparison, the defense force in U prison is simply vulnerable. Ida not just the recovery of cultivation. With the help of the compassionate true immortal's divine power, we can even bring in all kinds of materials from the outside world silently. I've been thinking about the delicacies for a long time, and am almost tired of eating them recently. The crowd discussed, but they were all full of confidence in the collective escape from U prison. During these 3 years, witnessing too much of the divine power displayed by the compassionate true immortal, they had long become loyal believers of the true immortal. The discussion lasted for a long time before Ko Hong spoke. It's easy to start an uprising, but what's more important is what happens after we get out. Once U prison is breached, the Myriad Immortals Alliance will definitely react immediately and launch a large-scale search. We won't have much time to respond, so we must plan our future arrangements before we escape. As soon as Ko Hong said this, everyone was stunned. Future arrangements. Could it be the compassionate true immortal's holy order? Although they had joined the organization for 3 years, they only knew of the existence of the compassionate true immortal. They knew nothing about the organization's real name or its true purpose. So they all looked at Ko Hong with anticipation. Yes, it is indeed the compassionate true immortal's test. Only by completing the test can you truly become a believer of the true immortal and a member of the organization. Ko Hong's tone was full of a sense of sacred mission. Then, he handed over a rather grand formation and a map to everyone. The heaven and earth myriad spirits great formation. The cultivators in U prison felt a slight tremor in their hearts the moment they saw the name of this formation. According to the explanation, this formation has the power to envelop the heavens and the earth and connect the myriad realms. The crowd then began to study the map. The map depicted the state territories within the Myriad Immortals Alliance, but it marked hundreds of small dots. When their divine senses condensed on these small spots of light, everyone was horrified to discover that these actually represented small worlds. Ko Hong also said at this time, the true Immortal's test is actually not difficult. It just takes a little time. Go to each small world and set up this heaven and earth myriad spirits great formation. Every time this formation is completed, it will automatically connect and form a formation network. So the moment it is completed, we will all know each other. Ko Hong earnestly explained. At the same time, he saw the doubts of some cultivators in the organization and explained, don't worry. These selected small worlds are all worlds where only mortals exist. With your strength, you will definitely be able to suppress them in a short time. The compassionate true immortal has also bestowed the divine object, heaven and earth furnace, to help you transform the small world. It can be said that the biggest test this time is your perseverance and faith. Looking at the specific requirements of the test task, the cultivators all fell into contemplation. However, they had already been subtly influenced by the power of the compassionate true immortal, and considering that they would inevitably face the pursuit of the Myriad Immortals Alliance once they broke out of prison, hiding in a mortal small world might not be a bad thing. So, without hesitation, they quickly accepted and began to think about the details of the plan. After allocating the ownership of their respective small worlds, they also discussed all the sudden situations they would face after escaping from U prison in detail. 3 months later, when the Immortal Alliance jailer escorted another fugitive here, just as he was about to throw him into a high-column cage to suppress and torture him, he was horrified to see that in U prison, thousands of pillars were breaking one after another. Countless vicious prisoners, with fierce eyes, locked onto him. Under the sweeping of the monstrous baleful aura, he was instantly crushed to pieces. Those misty jailers and Immortal Alliance cultivators who reacted and came to try to suppress them were all torn to pieces in an instant. Rush out, don't linger. Ko Hong shouted in a low voice, and everyone rushed out of U prison like ferocious beasts released from their cages. All the defensive formations were like decorations. The prisoners who saw the light of day again roared to vent the excitement in their hearts. But they did not stay in place because of this, but after simply identifying the direction, they rushed towards their target small world. Almost in the blink of an eye, a dark mass of ferocious men had disappeared in all directions. Soon after, the special envoy of the Myriad Immortals Alliance was alarmed and led a team to investigate. Seeing the protective formation without any signs of forced damage, his face showed anger. Teams of black-clothed cultivators followed the footprints of the escaped ferocious men and went to hunt down the criminals. 1133. All spirits control the true immortal. As for U prison, after such a large-scale escape, it was already dead in name only. After completing the transfer of the remaining prisoners, even the entrance to U prison was not concealed again. It was abandoned just like that. Time passed slowly, and no one came here again. It was as if the world had forgotten it. I don't know how long it had been when Li Fan's figure slowly appeared. Being suppressed in the deepest part of U prison, even I can't see their face clearly. The transfer even requires 3 Dao integration cultivators to come in persona. Interesting. Instead of escaping with the group of escaped cultivators immediately, Li Fan hid directly at the entrance. It was to explore the object detained in the deepest part of U prison, which he had been unable to approach for the past 3 years. It wasn't that the formation in the deepest part was so advanced that Li Fan couldn't break it, but the jailers responsible for guarding it were actually 3 Dao integration cultivators working together. It seemed that they were only there to suppress that one prisoner. Even when the upper U prison was breached and countless fiends escaped, they remained unmoved and did not come out to stop them. When the Myriad Immortals Alliance's receiving team arrived, Li Fan was able to see the prisoner during their transfer. He vaguely felt that he was somewhat familiar. However, he was obscured by secret techniques, so he couldn't be completely sure. Before the Myriad Spirit's grand formation is completed, it is still not advisable to cause any more disturbances. Let's wait until the next life to find out. Now, the only thing to do is to wait for the opportunity and watch the world change. Li Fan looked towards the distant horizon, as if he saw the myriad spirits' grand formation continuously lighting up in thousands of mortal worlds. The myriad spirits' grand formation shown to the group of fiends was not the complete name of the formation. This formation was derived by the dissolution disk within 3 years. It represented the highest level of formation that the dissolution disk could deduce in its current state. Taking the myriad spirits' grand formation that once covered the spirit tree world, the Empire, and the beast race world as a prototype, it was further deduced to create a world-shattering formation. The full name of the formation was a myriad spirits of heaven and earth, refining gods with all living beings. The most important function of this formation, and the reason why Li Fan had gone to great lengths to release this group of prisoners from Yu prison and make them work for him, was to achieve the goal contained in the 4 words, a refining gods with all living beings. It had the same effect as the refining gods with all living beings formation used by Song He and Song in Ningyuan City against senior brother Zhang in the fallen immortal illusion. The formation's attack was all based on the will of the myriad spirits of heaven and earth, and countless living beings. However, after Li Fan's modification, it was hundreds of billions of times stronger. Because the materials that needed to be consumed were hundreds of billions of times more. Back then, Song He and Song were able to push senior brother Zhang to the brink of desperation and force him to reveal the secrets of the undying purple core with the power of a city of mortals. But Li Fan used thousands of small worlds in the Xuanwang world and trillions of living beings, only to be able to block the faceless true immortal for a moment. After the spirit tree world was destroyed by the Myriad Immortals Alliance, Li Fan had been thinking and reviewing the final world-destroying plan during the 3 years he was hiding in Yu prison. After all, it was the first time he had confronted the power of a true immortal, and even if he was borrowing strength and watching the immortals fight from the sidelines, it meant endless risks. After all, these two were true immortals who had transcended the mortal world. Not a muscle-brained Foundation establishment cultivator. If they were so easy to plot against, how could they be worthy of the name of true immortal? Once he failed, he would be in an irredeemable situation. Especially after experiencing the siege of the Myriad Immortals Alliance, which displayed unexpected trump cards and directly annihilated the spirit tree world, Li Fan became more cautious than ever about the world-destroying plan. He calculated all the possibilities. So, he discovered a problem that he had taken for granted and ignored before. In Li Fan's original plan, he would first attract the power of the immortals from the immortal ruins, and then use this transcendent power to trigger the reaction of the faceless true immortal. Indeed, living beings always subconsciously react to things that threaten them. In the simulation prediction, the faceless true immortal and the immortals from the immortal ruins should first see each other and fight together. And ignore Li Fan, the instigator of this matter. But this was only under ideal circumstances. What if, after ascending to immortality, their way of thinking was no longer the same as mortals? Or, they sensed the existence of a returning to truth on Li Fan. Instead of locking onto an evenly matched opponent first, they locked onto Li Fan first. If he didn't make any preparations, he was afraid that he wouldn't even have time to escape to the netherworld and forcibly return to the truth if he was locked on by a true immortal at that time. The more he thought about it, the more uneasy Li Fan became. So, he finally decided that he had to find a way to buy him at least a sliver of time. And the myriad spirits of heaven and earth, refining gods with all living beings of formation was the final answer given by the dissolution disk. The gap between cultivators and mortals, and between true immortals and cultivators, was like a chasm. But when the quantity reached a certain level, it could produce a terrifying qualitative change. Falling into the endless sea of will of trillions of living beings, even true immortals will definitely have a moment of hesitation. The moment of distraction I have gained is the only chance I have to escape. The power of a true immortal could indeed destroy Xuanwang in an instant. But if it really developed as Li Fan predicted, after locking onto Li Fan, in order to catch this ant who was plotting in secret, the true immortal would not directly destroy the Xuanwang world. This gave Li Fan an opportunity. Thousands of mortal worlds, countless thoughts of living beings. What a vast power this is. But no matter how I deduce it, I can only block them for a sliver of time. This gap in absolute strength, it's really something to aspire to. Li Fan stood with his hands behind his back, silent. With the constraints of the faceless true immortal's power, that group of vicious prisoners would definitely complete the construction of the formation honestly. Li Fan didn't have to worry about this. And once the formation was completed, it would not be something they could control. The day the refining gods with all living beings formation is completed is the day the Xuanwang world will be destroyed. It's coming soon, within a year. During this period, Li Fan only needed to wait patiently. At the final moment of this life, Li Fan still had some finishing touches to do. He first came to Tianling State, to the original Five Elements Cave Heaven. Since the Five Elements Cave Heaven, which had been nurtured for who knows how many years, was devoured by Li Fan, a new Five Elements Cave Heaven had begun to be born in this intangible void called a root of heaven and earth. It's just that this process was particularly long. It was only now that the prototype of the cave heaven had faintly appeared. Li Fan strolled through the void, running the Ezwan Heavenly Tao Divine Power, observing the principles of heaven and earth. Feeling the rhythm like a beating heart, Li Fan narrowed his eyes and waited carefully for the prompt to return to the truth. And from this treasure that he was born with, Li Fan faintly felt a trace of dissatisfaction. 1134. The bloody array rises. Li Fan had felt the emotion of a still real to varying degrees in the past. The tremor he felt when he first encountered the eternal relic, and the desire he felt when facing Mr. Bai's skull. And now, as Li Fan attempted to feed, Still Real with his newly formed Five Elements Grotto Heaven, Still Real once again sent feedback. Not entirely satisfied, in other words, barely acceptable. A glint of coldness flashed in Li Fan's eyes as countless red threads flew out from the grotto heaven within his body, piercing into the void of a root of heaven and earth like billions of tentacles. He was seizing the ownership of the nascent grotto heaven from this mother. The root of heaven and earth was only responsible for the simple act of birthing grotto heavens, so when this creation, destined to break away from it, was slowly being taken by Li Fan, it did not cause much resistance. On the contrary, the nascent grotto heaven itself seemed to sense something. It tried its best to emit strands of resistance, attempting to stop Li Fan's devouring. But how could a newborn infant compare to a strong, adult brother? Without any suspense, the nascent grotto heaven was pulled into the Five Elements Grand Grotto Heaven illusory image, which resembled a background painting, amidst constant, slight rumbling sounds. Until it was completely swallowed and disappeared. A buzz, booza a. Li Fan heard bursts of sharp tinnitus in his ears, and the scene before him seemed to dim for a moment. When everything returned to normal, Li Fan looked at his still real panel. A current available anchoring points, 3 A increased by 1, as expected. After devouring golden core laws can no longer satisfy Still Real's appetite, I can only use higher grade nascent soul grotto heavens next. A. He verified his guess and increased Still Real's available anchor points, but Li Fan didn't feel particularly happy. Instead, he constantly replayed the feeling of a Still Real just now. Flavorless to eat, but a pity to discard. However, under Li Fan's insistence, Still Real ultimately devoured the nascent grotto heaven. Now it's grotto heavens, but what will it want in the future? Small worlds, cultivation realms, or the upcoming changes in the new law system, the essence of heaven and earth? But regardless, it's time to whet its appetite. Being picky is not a good habit. In the dark, empty space, Li Fan stood alone. After pondering for a long time, he slowly left. After coming out of the root of heaven and earth, Li Fan went to the location of the Scarlet River. Thanks to the remaining power of the fishing pond, this place had not yet been discovered by the Myriad Immortals Alliance. The surviving cultivators in the stronghold were the last remnants of the Myriad Worlds United Association. They had already learned of the annihilation of the Spirit Wood Realm headquarters, and amidst their sorrow and anger, not a single person's faith in the compassionate true immortal of the mortal world wavered. Because they could still feel the omnipresent, great divine power of the compassionate true immortal in their meditation. The cultivators Li Fan sent into the Scarlet River to search for historical fragments were mostly passionate young people. Their cultivation levels were mostly no higher than the early stage of the Golden Core. The Myriad Immortals Alliance was powerful, and although their desire for revenge was extremely strong, they knew they were no match. So they could only lie low for now, secretly accumulating strength. Without the support of the headquarters, having lost all their original reliance, they could only pin their hopes of revenge on that vast Scarlet River. With unwavering faith, ignoring their depleting lifespans, they threw themselves into it time and time again, trying to explore its mysteries. In 3 years, of the original 100 or so people, only 33 survived. And all of these survivors had suffered great losses in lifespan. They were all young, yet their hair had turned white, resembling old men in their twilight years. However, they were not without gains. Li Fan studied the insights they had summarized. Compared to purely profit-driven individuals, those who bear deeply ingrained hatred are more likely to maintain clarity of mind in the exploration of the Scarlet River. Projecting the Scarlet River seems to have a symbiotic attraction. For example, our group of Avengers are more likely to observe those cultivators in history who also harbored immense hatred. In addition to simply recording light and shadows, it may also be possible to bring things that once existed in history into reality. It seems to be a manifestation of the power of the Scarlet Rivera. However, the probability of triggering this is too low. Since the creation of a Seeking the Hidden, this phenomenon has only appeared once. We are researching the conditions required to achieve the Goala. Li Fan noted down all of this valuable research data. He also remembered the names of the cultivators who were diligently compiling and recording these results. Chen, not bad. Previously, this person was inconspicuous among the crowd. It was not until now, in the desperate situation of the United Association's destruction, that he finally demonstrated his leadership abilities. He is a promising talent. I can reuse him earlier in the next life. Let me see which small world he comes from. After achieving his goal at the Scarlet River, Li Fan did not show himself to disturb them. Instead, he allowed this group of people to continue their own mission. Anyway, the ending would be no different in a year. Li Fan quietly left and went to the Boundary Realm, the Empire, the Nether Realm, and many other places. He completed the harvesting of results and repeatedly tested and verified his escape plan. The river of time flows forward relentlessly. One day, Li Fan, who was fiddling with a tiny mysterious mirror, suddenly raised his head and looked into the distance. The first Heaven and Earth Myriad Spirits Grand Formation was completed. Li Fan's gaze instantly penetrated layers of spatial barriers, arriving at the mortal world where the Grand Formation was located. The cultivator in charge of constructing the formation here felt the reward of cultivation bestowed by the compassionate true immortal within his body, and his face revealed excitement. Receiving a guidance from the dark, he activated the Grand Formation without the slightest hesitation. This mortal world was even larger than Li Fan's hometown, the Great Zon. However, as the Heaven and Earth Myriad Spirits Grand Formation was activated, the originally clear blue sky was suddenly stained with a strange blood-red color. The blood color swirled back and forth in the sky, like a paintbrush, eventually transforming into a bizarre and terrifying blood-red giant eye. The giant eye coldly looked down at the sentient beings below, like the eye of a god. All living beings in the world felt an inexplicable sense of extreme panic in their hearts at this moment. Under instinctive fear, their bodies trembled uncontrollably and they collapsed to the ground. Even though nothing had happened yet, the emotion of despair had already spread across the land. Of course, it was not that there were no beings who dared to launch a resistance against this blood-red giant eye. But all they could do was point to the sky and curse in anger, a fit of impotent rage. And the cultivator who had single-handedly built the Heaven and Earth Myriad Spirits Grand Formation in this world was now staring blankly at the blood-red giant eye in the sky. He muttered to himself, no, how could this be? 1135. It is difficult to save oneself from adversity. The grand array of myriad spirits of heaven and earth connects to all the heavens and myriad realms. Why would such a strange change occur after the formation is complete? Something must be wrong. An extreme sense of unease welled up in his heart, and the cultivator was just about to shut down the formation. Buddha, everything was already too late. For some unknown reason, the formation suddenly began to operate on its own. A blood-colored giant eye slowly opened, revealing an eerie vertical pupil. Boom! The entire mortal world trembled violently. Countless beams of blood-colored light rose from the earth, like pillars of light, converging into the blood-colored giant eye in the sky. After a moment of stunned silence, when he understood what had just happened, endless despair and fear surged onto the cultivator's face. Because the moment the blood-colored vertical pupil appeared, all living beings in this mortal world were instantly killed. They transformed into beams of blood-colored light, which were absorbed by the blood-colored pupil. The cultivator's body trembled uncontrollably, and endless chill enveloped his heart. Although he had committed no small sins in the past, compared to the act of instantly killing an entire world of living beings, they were not even on the same level. We have all been deceived. What compassionate true Immortal! This is clearly an incredibly terrifying evil god. Scenes from the past 4 years flashed through his mind, and indescribable fear gradually engulfed the cultivator. But at this moment, the only remaining conscience in his heart suddenly awakened him from despair. A glimmer of hope erupted in the cultivator's eyes, and he suddenly remembered something. No, I can't let others follow in my footsteps. I have to go and notify Tama. The cultivator was about to flee this place in a panic. But he discovered that the blood-colored vertical pupil in the sky had already locked onto him at some point. Just as the cultivator felt a chill all over his body, thinking he would die beneath the blood-colored giant eye. A breeze seemed to blow through the heavens and earth, and then a phantom inexplicably manifested, instantly attracting the attention of the blood-colored vertical pupil in the sky. Far away in the Xuanwang world, Li Fan narrowed his eyes. He was no stranger to that phantom. Mr. Bai, did the one-time annihilation of too many living beings cause the immortal miasma to erupt violently in a short period of time, triggering a countermeasure? The phantom stood between heaven and earth, and although its facial expression could not be seen clearly, boundless anger could be felt from its body. The phantom's gaze swept across this world, and then locked onto the only survivor here, which was the cultivator who set up the formation. The cultivator immediately realized that he could not move, and a sense of impending death surged into his heart. He struggled, wanting to say something. The phantom did not listen to his explanation at all. A wave instantly crossed thousands of miles, descending from the phantom onto the cultivator's body. The cultivator's body stiffened suddenly. Then, strands of hair turned from black to white, and his skin wrinkled, like withered wood. In the blink of an eye, the cultivator transformed from a middle-aged figure into an old man on the verge of death. Then, he completely turned into a skeleton, falling from the sky. After completing this act of revenge, Mr. Bai's phantom looked at the empty world where there were no other living beings. A trace of sadness appeared on his face, reluctantly taking one last look, and then dissipating with the wind. In the Xuanwang world, Li Fan shook his head slightly. I didn't expect the immortal miasma to have this form. No wonder the Xuanwang world cultivators quickly agreed to the proposal of mortal migration back then. They must have discovered this secret as well. The wronged have their avengers, and the debtors have their creditors. Whoever went to set up the formation, you can go find them. It has nothing to do with me, Li Fan said with a sneer. It just so happens that it saves me the effort of cleaning up. The passing of a villain did not attract the attention of other villains. As one formation after another was established and joined the refining god network, Li Fan was getting closer and closer to his final goal in this life. He looked at the countless sentient consciousnesses in the refining god formation. Even as the mastermind behind this, claiming to have attained returning to truth and being qualified to disregard everything in the world, he still felt his heart palpitate and dared not look directly for a long time. The power of endless sentient beings is truly terrifying and awe-inspiring. I think even a true immortal would pale in comparison in this sea of sentient beings. Li Fan's heart, as cold as 10,000 years of ice, actually had a slight tremor at this moment. But soon, his eyes regained their firmness. All of this is necessary. The immortal path is severed, and even figures like Xuanfa, Zhan Tianwang, and Mr. Bai are trapped here for eternity. Only by finding a true method of liberation can everything be ultimately resolved. Otherwise, even if I don't act, the entire Xuanwang world will eventually face a destructive end. Li Fan's gaze became cold and indifferent again. Under his instructions, the construction speed of the myriad spirits' grand array accelerated again. Finally, this supreme formation, covering many mortal worlds, was completely formed. Just at this moment, 5 Due sect paper figures appeared beside Li Fan again at the right time. This time, they did not bother Li Fan. Instead, they all looked towards the sky of the Xuanwang world. Strange, how did the Xuanwang world seem to become a bit out of control and accelerate after just taking a nap? Could it be that the suction of the immortal ruins has strengthened again? Such strange things have not happened in so many years. The magnitude of the change is limited, and we didn't notice it at first. The 5 little people were discussing animatedly, completely ignoring Li Fan's existence. After careful observation, Li Fan realized that they were not the ones who came out from time to advise him before, but figures who had never appeared before. They seemed to have a high status in the Due sect, in charge of monitoring the crisis in the Xuanwang world. Li Fan had no intention of communicating with them. Instead, he directly activated the formation and forcibly took them back into the Due scripture. Such a change quickly aroused the vigilance of the 5 little people. They stared at Li Fan, and the expressions on their faces slowly became horrified. So you have been all along not good, eh? The Due scripture trembled incessantly, its pages turning without wind and constantly fluttering. It seemed that a large number of paper figures would soon emerge from it. However, before they could achieve anything, under the restraint of invisible power, the 5 little people were forcibly pulled into the Due scripture. The book also slowly closed. It was still jumping and resisting. Li Fan's expression remained unchanged, and he only continuously strengthened the sealing formation until the Due scripture completely stopped moving. Since you choose to be a turtle with a shrinking head, then continue to be one. The Xuanwang world doesn't need you to save it. Li Fan said lightly, suppressing the Due scripture in the deepest part of the 5 elements cave heaven. The grand array of myriad spirits of heaven and earth and refining God of all living beings had been set up. Li Fan's last insurance lock had fallen, and next, he would prepare to launch the final plan. After my observation over the past year, I have confirmed that Xuanfa should not be in the Xuanwang world. Just like in the past. 1136. Heaven is in front of the Immortal. 9 Mountain State. Today is a good day. Zhao Xian wrote his name on the golden contract in front of him. As a ray of golden light flew into his body and the contract was established, he laughed heartily. The group of 5 elders from the chamber collected the contract, their faces also showing joy as they echoed his sentiment. For the better part of the day, Zhao Xian engaged in more detailed negotiations with the 5 elders regarding the trade agreement. Only after sending them to the guest cave within the city to rest did Zhao Xian finally breathe a sigh of relief. Instead of returning to his own cave, he turned back to the shop and entered the underground secret chamber. Looking at the faceless stone statue hidden in the darkness, Zhao Xian's expression was complex, his thoughts swirling. Ever since the Myriad Realms Union was annihilated by the Myriad Immortals Alliance and placed on the permanent kill list, Zhao Xian, as a hidden agent of the Union in 9 Mountain State, had been living in constant fear. His mind was uneasy every day, and he often had the illusion that the Myriad Immortals Alliance would come to his door and arrest him suddenly. Without the Union providing supplies, the shop's supply of goods was greatly affected. The number of customers declined daily, and it was almost impossible to continue. In the end, he had to beg everywhere, using up all the savings he had accumulated over the years, to barely rebuild the supply chain. Fortunately, it's all over, Zhao Xian said to himself. The turmoil of the Union had subsided. Even during the days when the Myriad Immortals Alliance's search was the most stringent, they failed to discover Zhao Xian's true identity. There should be no danger in the future. After several years of painstaking management, the business in the shop had returned to normal. Recently, he had even reached a commercial agreement with a caravan from the 5 Elders Association. The value of the fixed trading materials alone was as high as tens of millions of contribution points per year. Although there are no more true immortal rewards, the profits from the shop alone are enough to support my cultivation all the way to the transformation god realm. The Union is destroyed, and the profits don't have to be handed over, but are all pocketed by me. I'm even living better than before, Zhao Xian thought with some pride. Indeed, misfortune and fortune are interdependent, and the world is impermanent. Taking one last look at the faceless stone statue, Zhao Xian decided to permanently seal this underground secret chamber. In the future, no one would ever know the secret that he was once a member of the Myriad Realms Union. A true immortal is merciful, presumably he won't blame me. Zhao Xian respectfully performed one last salute, and then sealed the secret chamber. After completing all of this, Zhao Xian felt relieved, as if he had been reborn. However, on the way back to his cave, he looked up at the azure sky of the Xuanwang realm, and for some reason, a burst of uneasiness suddenly surged in his heart. Zhao Xian had always had great confidence in his intuition, and immediately stopped in his tracks. Carefully recalling every detail of his recent life, and thinking for a long time, Zhao Xian could not find anything wrong. The chaotic feeling in his heart became more and more intense, and Zhao Xian suddenly felt something and looked around at the people around him. One look made him break out in a cold sweat. It turned out that it wasn't just him. In the free trade city of Nine Mountains State, at this moment, all the cultivators strolling on the street seemed to vaguely sense something was wrong. They were confused and nervous. Even more, cold sweat broke out on their foreheads, and their steps were unsteady. Thissa Zhao Xian's mind suddenly flashed with the scene of ants collectively moving before the rainstorm arrived. Could it be that a great disaster is about to happen? Zhao Xian suddenly inexplicably recalled the origin of this Nine Mountains trade state. Originally, this place was still a chaotic state where dragons and snakes were mixed, and 9 mountains stood side by side. Because the Myriad Immortals Alliance and the 5 Elders Association fought each other, the Heavenly Venerable's Dharma image flattened the mountains and rivers with one glance. That's how the current prosperous 9 Mountains state came into being. Could it be that what happened that day is going to be staged again? Zhao Xian trembled as this thought emerged. Although reason told him that neither the Myriad Immortals Alliance nor the 5 Elders Association would start another war in 9 Mountains State for the sake of each other's interests. But the strange phenomenon in front of him made him determined that a disaster was about to happen. Escape. Only a moment later, Zhao Xian made a decision. That's right, he loved money. He also wanted to become a transformation god cultivator and suppress one side. But all of this was on the premise of being able to save his own life. With the abilities he had honed in 9 Mountains State over the years, even if he returned to being penniless, he could rise again in another place. Moreover, Zhao Xian had always kept the most valuable things in the shop close to his body. Thinking of this, Zhao Xian immediately changed direction, and without regard for the city's ban, he flew towards the border of 9 Mountains State at top speed. His abnormal behavior naturally attracted the attention of the cultivators in 9 Mountains City. As if it had triggered a chain reaction, they also began to flee for no reason. Just like the instinctive struggle of beasts after sensing a crisis of life and death. And the facts proved that these cultivators' premonitions were not wrong. They didn't escape far before a terrifying wave descended from behind them. The sky instantly turned dark. Countless cultivators didn't even have time to scream before they were swallowed by an unknown terrifying existence. Feeling the thousands of auras that disappeared in an instant behind him, extreme fear occupied his brain. At this moment, his thinking also ran wildly at an unprecedented speed. There must be some terrible disaster descending on 9 Mountains State. My strength is obviously unable to survive this disaster. Now there is still a long distance from the border of 9 Mountains State. There is not enough time to escape to a safe place. The reason why 9 Mountains State does not have a transmission array is because the spatial structure here is extremely unstable. Arbitrarily launching a teleportation will not only fail to reach the target location, but will instead be randomly teleported to other places. It is even possible to get lost in the void. But there is always hope of surviving. Zhao Xian's thoughts turned sharply, and his body also made an instinctive reaction. He directly activated the random teleportation array map in the storage ring. The surrounding scene twisted and blurred. After a brief dizziness, Zhao Xian escaped from 9 Mountains State and came to an unfamiliar place. But the scene in front of him did not give him any joy of surviving a disaster. Instead, it was like falling into an ice cave, his brain blank. As if floating in the high sky, overlooking the Xuanwang realm. Thousands of black spots densely appeared on the earth. Like a dark abyss, devouring everything around it. The whole world seemed to be torn apart by these black spots, forming pieces of curled paper. The cultivators on the earth, no matter how hard they struggled, could not persist in the black domain for a moment. They turned into twisted rays of light and disappeared into the black spots. So the disaster is not only happening in 9 Mountains State. What is this? Is the end coming? Is the world going to be destroyed? Zhao Xian was stunned. But soon, his attention was attracted by another spectacle that echoed this doomsday scene. In the sky above the Xuanwang realm, which was instantly torn into thousands of twisted pieces of paper, a picture suddenly appeared, as if countless paints had been splashed at will. On the splashed ink painting, countless scenes changed rapidly every moment. And in front of this strange painting, a figure stood with his hands behind his back. As if sensing Sun Xian's gaze from afar, the figure turned his head. Before he could see the other person's face clearly, Zhao Xian's body and soul exploded into countless pieces because they could not accommodate this powerful pressure. He died without a whole body. A moment later, Li Fan already knew why this unlucky guy had come here. He shook his head slightly, stopped paying attention to him, and instead focused his attention on the myriad changes in the world erupting from the Xuanwang realm in front of him. Those countless black spots were naturally the immortal power that he had triggered when the bait puppets flew to the immortal ruins and launched the world destruction plan. The power of the immortals in the immortal ruins was transmitted to the Xuanwang realm along the induction connected by those puppets, causing boundless destruction. And as Li Fan expected, the moment the immortal ruins' immortal power appeared, it caused the spontaneous reaction of the faceless true immortal statues arranged by Li Fan next to the bait puppets. These faceless true immortal statues have no entities. Instead, they are condensed by Li Fan purely using the source power essence of the faceless true immortal. When the immortal ruins' world destruction power swept towards them, an unspeakable power emerged inexplicably from the source power essence. Like a butterfly breaking out of its cocoon, or like a flower falling and a fruit appearing. The source power essence disappeared like melting ice and snow, and was directly replaced by a power that the world could not understand, colliding with the immortal ruins' immortal power. Like two huge waves colliding with each other, stirring up thousands of waves. In an instant, the Xuanwang realm was torn into thousands of pieces. But it seemed that it was precisely because of the two's competition that the Xuanwang realm, which was already riddled with holes, did not directly shatter in the first place. It seems that my worries were unnecessary. The faceless true immortal doesn't seem to have noticed my existence. Li Fan thought to himself. Extract the marrow of heaven and earth to obtain its spirit. He chanted, absorbing the strange splashed ink painting in front of him into the shadow of the five elements cave heaven behind him. In front of Li Fan, scenes of the Xuanwang realm's past, present, and future trajectories that were originally going to happen were staged one after another like a revolving lantern. In addition, Li Fan also felt an extremely strong desire to survive from it. The picture spun rapidly like a vortex, and something seemed to be about to be born from it. After careful consideration, Li Fan actually sensed the Xuanwang realm's intention to beg for cooperation. The world is dying, and it is no different from people. It has clearly discovered that I am falsely claiming to be the heavenly Tao, but for the sake of a possible glimmer of hope, not only does it not blame me, but it is even willing to cooperate with Maya. This is something I didn't expect before. Li Fan snorted coldly, did not agree to the Xuanwang realm's request. Nor did he directly refuse. Instead, he accelerated the speed of extracting the marrow of heaven and earth. As countless changes that will give birth are integrated into the body, the five elements cave heaven also began to undergo earth-shaking changes. In stark contrast to the Xuanwang realm, which had reached the end of the world, the five elements cave heaven was instead an unprecedentedly prosperous scene. The five elements flow between, tending to merge. The five elements of gold, wood, water, fire, and earth return to one, and the barriers within each cave heaven that were originally very obvious slowly disappeared. A brand new world full of infinite vitality is forming. And at this moment, Li Fan, who was about to successfully advance to the transformation god realm, inexplicably felt a trace of danger. A beam of light arrived in an instant from outside the void. No. After seeing the current appearance of the Xuanwang realm clearly, he let out an angry roar. Then, in an instant, he crossed the long spatial distance and locked onto Li Fan. The two looked at each other, and both faces were somewhat surprised. Li Fan was surprised that he originally thought that the one who would come back would be the transmission method. But he never expected that the figure that appeared in this life was the Heavenly Doctor, and the Heavenly Doctor was surprised that Li Fan, the last successor of the Heavenly Law realm in name, would appear here for some reason. Moreover, he was mercilessly extracting the marrow of the Xuanwang realm. He came back really fast. Li Fan sighed inwardly. Returned to reality. Li Fan did not hesitate at all, and immediately recited silently in his heart. Affected by the immortal ruins' immortal power, Li Fan's senses felt that the true immortal's net had loosened its restraints on him. The Heavenly Doctor had also discovered him. So he stopped being greedy and directly activated the return to reality. The surrounding scene suddenly became nothingness. At this moment, Li Fan clearly saw the shock on the Heavenly Doctor's face, as well as the light that suddenly burst out in his turbid eyes. What did he discover? Li Fan's heart tightened suddenly. But the surrounding scenery had almost become still. Even if he was as strong as the Heavenly Doctor, His movements were extremely slow in Li Fan's eyes. Dense fog enveloped all the scenery. All things in the world are about to turn from true to false, and from real to virtual. Just Thena. The thousands of black spots in the Xuanwang realm suddenly burst out with brilliant light. The immortal ruins' immortal power that could easily tear the Xuanwang realm apart was suppressed at this moment. In all the still pictures, only this brilliance was the least affected. Even in Li Fan's opinion, it was still slow motion. But it was still rushing towards Li Fan at an extremely fast speed. A faceless true immortal. Li Fan's heart was suddenly as if it was being clenched tightly by a hand. The threat of the heavenly doctor was instantly thrown to the back of his mind. In the end, he still discovered Maya A heaven and earth, all spirits, all beings refining gods. A blood-colored giant net spread out around Li Fan. Layer upon layer, densely packed. It was like countless hideous human faces. The red giant net started from Li Fan and expanded wildly towards the surroundings. The creatures in the net, trillions, simultaneously let out a wail before death. That brilliant light ignored the red giant net and came towards Li Fan unswervingly. Li Fan had never felt that the activation time of return to reality was so slow. Seeing that the brilliant white light was about to rush to his eyes, his body could not help but become stiff and cold. Even his thinking was inevitably frozen. Fortunately, the red giant net had a bit of a blocking effect after all. When the brilliant light locked onto Li Fan before Li Fan successfully activated return to reality, all the scenes became illusory. Only that brilliant white light was still dazzling. Anchoring 1 year. Dissection Mountain Peak. Having narrowly escaped death, Li Fan was drenched in sweat, gasping for breath. Is this the power of a true immortal? The collective will of trillions of living beings is so pale and powerless before them. Just as Li Fan was thinking this, he suddenly felt that something was wrong with his body. He wasn't using his eyes to see at the moment, because Li Fan reached out and touched his face, his body trembling slightly. His face had disappeared. 1137. Immortal power turns into nothingness. End of simulation. You can choose one of the following options to keep. 1. An item you possess in this simulation. 2. Your cultivation realm in this simulation. 3. The simulation memory of a person closely related to you in this simulation. This memory can be inherited by that person. 4. Abandon the above options to speed up the charging progress. The prompt really did appear floating before Li Fan's eyes, but he was in no mood to make a choice right now. Instead, he was sensing the changes happening to his body. Just like when he came into contact with the immortal chi of the immortal ruins, even after revert to true he still felt incredibly hungry. This time, illuminated by the brilliant immortal power of the faceless true immortal, Li Fan, who had barely managed to revert to true, was unable to completely get rid of the true immortal's power in just one revert to true. The side effect brought by the immortal ruins immortal is the hunger that wants to devour everything around me. As for the faceless true immortal, Li Fan carefully groped his face. It was as if a layer of skin had been put on, covering all his features. Only the sense of touch remained. Although he had the assistance of divine sense to perceive, which did not affect his normal actions in life, it still made Li Fan feel a slight chill in his heart. It's not just the face that's disappearing, but also Li Fan used his divine sense to look at his body. It actually showed a faint sense of transparency from time to time, like a ghost. My existence is also disappearing. He had just returned to anchor point year 1, and revert to true was still charging. If he died now, it would be a real death, with no chance to start over. Faced with such a desperate situation, Li Fan did not panic. Instead, he was extremely calm and thought quickly. The previous experience of using revert to true several times to completely dilute the influence of the immortal ruins' immortal power made Li Fan understand that the influence the faceless true immortal had exerted on him this time should also be resolved through multiple revert to true. This does not mean that in the face of a true immortal, the ability of revert to true has begun to gradually become inadequate. It's just that Li Fan himself is too weak. But now there are several key issues in front of Li Fan. First, revert to true needs to be charged. Before that, if I don't do something, I'm afraid I won't last that long. Second, under the influence of the faceless true immortal's brilliant immortal power, I have become like this. Compared to when I was a true immortal envoy in my previous life, his influence on me is even deeper now. That is to say, From the very beginning of this life, I have already fallen into the true Immortal's web. According to the last experience of my previous life, even if I trigger the Xuanwang world and cause thousands of changes, it may not attract the faceless true Immortal's attention. But once I activate Revert to True, I will definitely attract him. Li Fan walked out of the wooden house on the mountaintop and came to the edge of the boundless sea of clouds. Looking at the red sun rising in the sky, Li Fan did not feel the slightest warmth under the sunlight. Instead, he felt an uncontrollable chill in his heart. Li Fan sat quietly on the edge of the cliff, thinking seriously. At the same time, he seemed to be waiting for something. Until the sun was high in the sky, after a full half a day, the Great Zon Dissolution Mountain was still calm. Nothing unexpected happened. Only then did Li Fan breathe a sigh of relief, and the feeling of escaping a catastrophe surged into his heart. The faceless true Immortal did not come. He stood up and patted the dust off his body. Feeling his body becoming more and more ethereal, Li Fan looked at the Revert to True prompt that was still flashing on the screen before him. He still did not make any choice, but ignored it for the time being. Returning to the wooden house on the mountaintop, he lay on the bed and pondered. What is the essence of Revert to True? When the real is treated as fake, the fake is also real. For me, a bug that suddenly appeared in the true Immortal's web without any warning, the faceless true Immortal chose to ignore it. Either it shows that he cannot detect the specific situation in the Xuanwang world's small world. Or, before this, the world did not exist. The moment I returned, time began to flow and everything truly had meaning. From my perspective, it was because of the cause and effect of the previous life that I suddenly appeared in the true Immortal's web. But for that faceless true Immortal, I already existed in the true Immortal's web. So there is nothing abnormal. This is also the reason why he did not descend. Countless thoughts swirled in Li Fan's mind. If it is time reversal, then the faceless true Immortal at this point in time should be able to keenly perceive the changes that have occurred to him. For a true Immortal, to have something happen beyond his control, he will definitely not let go of this change, and follow the clues to come to my door. But all of this did not happen. Li Fan repeated the 7 words that accompanied Revert to True every time in his heart again. When the real is treated as fake, the fake is also real. Turning the void into reality and reorganizing all things. To have such a divine object by my side, but to fall into such a miserable situation, it's really a bit unreasonable. Li Fan shook his head and mocked himself. In the end, he still underestimated the power of the true Immortal. He didn't expect that even after activating Revert to True, that brilliant immortal power could still trace back to the source. Moreover, it seems that the more powerful the existence, the more sensitive they are to the power of Revert to True. The faceless true Immortal's sudden outburst, suppressing the immortal ruin's immortal power, and his urgent arrival clearly showed that he knew something about Revert to True. The performance of Revert to True is closely related to my strength. Before I advance to the longevity realm, I'd better not provoke them, Li Fan thought. After making a phased guess and summary about the true Immortal and Revert to True, Li Fan finally began to think about how to solve the current predicament. I am now at the 3rd anchor point. Revert to True is a foundation establishment treasure, and my cultivation is in the late stage of foundation establishment. If I choose to inherit the cultivation of my previous life, then I will instantly complete the transformation from the foundation establishment stage to the transformation God stage. But I am now in the true Immortal's web. The reason why I have not attracted the faceless true Immortal's attention is because my own strength is negligible. But if a foundation establishment ant instantly becomes a transformation God ant, it is possible to attract his attention. So the way to solve the crisis in this life is very clear. Hide in the netherworld, and activate Revert to True again the moment I choose to inherit the cultivation of my previous life. Avoid the faceless true Immortal's reinfestation, and at the same time use Revert to True to wash away the mark he left on me. Repeat this. But before that, Li Fan reached out and wanted to pick up a teacup placed in the wooden house. At first, there was no problem, but as his body became a little transparent, the teacup actually slipped from his hand and fell directly to the ground. Is this the power of the faceless true Immortal? Deprivation of existence. The first thing Li Fan needs to solve is to find a way to stabilize his own existence before Revert to True completes its charging. Otherwise, all efforts will be in vain. And judging from his current physical condition, the time left for Li Fan is not much. There is still one chapter to wait for later. 1138. The Emperor of Hevna Chi serves as an anchor. Fortunately, Li Fan was no longer the mortal Grand Tutor who had just entered the world of cultivation. After multiple reincarnations, he had mastered too many secrets of the cultivation world. Scenes from the past flashed through his mind, and he quickly found a feasible solution. To minimize the possibility of being detected by the faceless true immortal, It's best if my own strength does not change drastically. But I also need to increase my strength as much as possible, that is, my existence in this world. The Heavenly Emperor's Chi Codex. A secret manual that did not belong to the Xuanwang world instantly appeared in Li Fan's sea of consciousness. This was an unparalleled skill that Senior Stone Slab had fished out of the fishing pond. Senior Stone Slab was not interested in it and casually threw it to Li Fan back then. But now, it had become Li Fan's most suitable lifeline. The Heavenly Emperor's Chi Codex allows one to become a worldly emperor, condensing the fortune of all living beings and dynasties. Without cultivation, one can become a powerhouse comparable to the Eternal Realm. Although becoming an Eternal Realm powerhouse requires hundreds of years and the successive efforts of more than 10 generations, Li Fan didn't expect to reach the highest level of the Heavenly Emperor's Chi Codex. He only needed to condense the fortune of all living beings to help him overcome his current predicament. Time is of the essence. The cultivation of the late stage of foundation establishment is enough to sweep the world. Li Fan stood on the summit of Mount Jiali, gazing at Xuanjing City. His figure fluttered as he sped away. 3 days later, a piece of news spread like wildfire, reaching every corner of the world. The great Zan Emperor Wasiaa, a fatuous and tyrannical ruler, incurring the wrath of heaven and the resentment of the people. Fortunately, a heaven-sent sage emperor descended, to execute the fatuous ruler and kill the treacherous officials, restart the Golden Age, and recreate the world. It was said with divine flair, but the officials and people of Great Zan knew at a glance that this was a change of dynasty. Although it was indeed an earth-shattering event, after a few days of chaos, everyone quickly calmed down. After all, since ancient times, imperial power has not extended to the countryside. No matter how the top changes, those who truly control the world are still the same people. That was what the people of Great Zan initially thought. However, before long, the extraordinary aspects of this heaven-sent sage emperor gradually became apparent. Overnight, high platforms rose from the ground in various parts of Great Zan. No one knew how these 100-jong-tall buildings were created, but this existence called a sage emperor's seat completely changed the official ecosystem of the Great Zan Empire. Because these sage emperor's seats could project the image of the heaven-sent sage emperor onto the sky. Every citizen, even those living in remote mountains, could listen to the sage emperor's teachings through these sage emperor's seats spread throughout the empire. What frightened the officials in various places even more was that these sage emperor's seats also had the function of connecting to the capital. A drought had occurred in Qingzhou, and there had been no harvest for 3 months, with starvation everywhere. However, not long after the sage emperor's seat was built, a team of imperial guards walked out of it, bringing a large amount of food for disaster relief. While saving countless people, this event also spread throughout the world instantly through the sage emperor's seat. Moreover, the sage emperor's envoys successively walked out of the sage emperor's seat and summoned officials from various places, which also confirmed the authenticity of the disaster relief. And the deeds of the heaven-sent sage emperor, who was a reincarnation of an immortal and had demonstrated various divine powers in the court, also became widely known in a short period of time. The people of all places can pray to the great heaven-sent sage emperor through the sage emperor's seat. Any local official who is fatuous or corrupt will be severely punished upon verification. This was the teaching of the sage emperor's envoy to the people of Great Zan. Don't think you can simply die. The means of the heaven-sent sage emperor are beyond your imagination. The hundreds of fat pigs tied to the vegetable market in Xuanjing City are officials who previously exploited the people. Now they are still using their trotters to write repentance letters on the ground every day. I am here this time to take you to appreciate them. This was the warning of the sage emperor's envoy to the officials of Great Zan. And when the bureaucrats of Great Zan collectively took a trip to the vegetable market in the capital, they all turned pale. After returning to their respective jurisdictions, they all became honest and upright in a short period of time. Xuanjing City. Li Fan floated above the capital, watching the dynasty's fortune slowly turn from black to green, and nodded slightly. By using the sage emperor's seat to achieve strong centralism, the Great Zan dynasty has completed its transformation in a short period of time. Next, it is to slowly gather the hearts of the people and sublimate the fortune. Li Fan observed his body. The lives of hundreds of millions of creatures in Great Zon are now tied to him. It was like a substantial anchor that fixed his existence. His body was no longer as ethereal and transparent as a ghost. However, it would still occasionally reappear in that illusory state. Obviously, it had not completely stabilized. It's not a big problem. As long as Great Zon doesn't have any problems and becomes stronger and stronger, in another 3 years, I should be able to completely get rid of the side effects of nothingness. But it's just solving the side effects. To truly escape the true immortal's net, I still need to go to the netherworld to return to the truth. Li Fan gently threw a punch forward. Without using his own Foundation establishment's spiritual power, he only relied on the dynasty's fortune condensed by the Heavenly Emperor's Chi Codex. The whistling sound of breaking through the air rang out, and the distant white clouds were split open from the middle. Even a phantom of a azure dragon faintly appeared in the air, raising its head and roaring. White, azure, red, purple, gold, are the 5 great realms of the Heavenly Emperor's Chi Codex. In just a month, I have cultivated to the 2nd level. The reason for such rapid cultivation is that the foundation of Great Zon is not bad, barely considered to be in a feudal golden age. Secondly, Li Fan looked at the towering Sage Emperor's seat below. Immortal methods are simply a dimensionality reduction strike for mortal dynasties. I severely punished a group of corrupt officials and solved the disasters in various places. Then, I announced it to the world through the Sage Emperor's seat, and the hearts of the people were almost instantly united. If an ordinary feudal mortal emperor wanted to achieve what I have, it would take at least 10 years. And they would have to face the counterattack of officials and local forces. I don't need to worry about these. Thinking this, Li Fan slowly descended from the clouds into the palace. Greetings, Sage Emperor. Greetings, teacher. The guards in the courtyard immediately knelt on the ground. Rise. Li Fan waved his hand and helped them all up. The faces of these young people immediately turned red with excitement. They were all personally selected by Li Fan from various parts of Great Zon. In addition to undertaking the guard work of the palace, their main task was to kill officials in various places and deter villains, maintaining the prosperity and invincibility of the Great Zon dynasty. And among them, the 2 talented young men named Sun Erlang and Wang Xuanba from the foot of Mount Jiali, who called Li Fan teacher, were undertaking an even more important mission. Erlang, how is your cultivation of the ascending immortal art that I taught you? After dismissing the others, Li Fan looked at Sun Erlang and asked in a deep voice. 1139. The significance of the anchor point. He wore a long, dark black robe embroidered with 9 golden dragons entwined with each other. Thea hung down, obscuring his face, making it impossible to see his features clearly. As expected of the heaven-ordained Holy Emperor, it's difficult for mortals to gaze upon the dragon countenance. Sun Erlang felt Li Fan's gaze upon him, and his body trembled slightly as he subconsciously lowered his head. At the same time, he said in a hoarse voice, reporting to Master, this disciple is incompetent. I only just broke through to the 1st level of Qi refining yesterday. Relying solely on the meager spiritual energy gathered within the palace, it's not easy for you to complete the introduction of Qi into your body in such a short period of time, Li Fan said, not blaming him, but instead nodding in consolation. Hearing this, Sun Erlang looked even more ashamed. If it weren't for the profound yellow immortal heart incantation taught by Master, I'm afraid I would still be affected by the miasma in my body and unable to embark on the path of immortality. After speaking, Sun Erlang kowtowed several times in gratitude. Li Fan didn't stop him. After Sun Erlang stood up again, he asked indifferently, what is the overall progress of the Imperial Guards in learning the immortal heart incantation? As of yesterday, a total of 160 soldiers have successfully entered the gate and shed their mortal bodies. The rest who failed the test have all been dealt with cleanly. A trace of intolerance flashed in Sun Erlang's eyes, but he quickly concealed it. You and the others will be the main force for my conquest of the myriad realms in the future, so you must diligently cultivate day and night and not slack off. As for the issue of spiritual energy, you don't need to worry. 3 days later, you will personally ride this immortal boat to the eastern void abyss. Li Fan pointed casually, and a wooden boat the size of 10 zhong appeared in front of Sun Erlang. The wooden boat was covered with silver lines, emitting waves of profound aura. It's truly an immortal treasure. Master is actually so willing to entrust such a treasure to me, Sun Erlang thought, his heart trembling, and he quickly nodded in agreement. And that immortal boat also flew into his arms. A feeling of effortless control immediately arose in Sun Erlang's heart. Go down. Just as he was experiencing the mystery of the immortal boat, Li Fan's voice rang out at the right time. Sun Erlang bowed and took his leave. The entire imperial palace garden was left with only Li Fan. Beneath the faceless face in the shadows looked strange and sinister. If it weren't for the fact that this world is destined not to last too long, and the experiment of simply imparting the law to others, I'm afraid it would have taken me a long time to discover that the profound yellow immortal heart incantation is not restricted by the inability to cultivate multiple techniques at the same time. Is it that the immortal heart incantation doesn't belong to the category of cultivation techniques, or is it the preferential treatment that the profound yellow heavenly Tao gives to the profound yellow great heavenly venerate? Regardless, the plan to select a suitable person to succeed the profound yellow great heavenly venerate in the future will be much easier to implement than imagined. Li Fan's thoughts slowly turned, and with a flash, he came to the Holy Emperor's seat that stood in Xuanjing City. Strands of faint spiritual energy nourished Li Fan's body, so that his current late-stage foundation establishment realm would not regress due to a lack of spiritual energy. After reincarnating for over 100 lifetimes, and reaching the transformation god realm with strength comparable to a Tao integration cultivator, Li Fan has now returned to the foundation establishment realm. However, the world in his eyes is already different from the past. For example, a mortal small world like Dazan is not without any spiritual energy. After all, it is connected to the profound yellow realm. It's just that due to the special structure of the small world itself, coupled with the blockade of the immortal severing grand array, the spiritual energy is extremely thin, almost non-existent. Ordinary cultivators cannot use it at all. Only those long-lived animals can accumulate spiritual energy little by little over time. Just like the giant snake, hundreds of zhang long, on Mount Jiali. Extracting all the spiritual energy from an entire world can only barely maintain the survival of a foundation establishment cultivatora. However, it wouldn't hurt to borrow some from the profound yellow realm. Li Fan added some new formations to the Tian boat that he gave to Sun Erlang. The purpose was to automatically fly to the profound yellow realm, absorb and store spiritual energy, and then return. Sun Erlang in the Tian boat naturally couldn't see the things outside the flying boat. All he needed to do was bring the flying boat to the side of the void abyss. Although with Li Fan's current level of formation mastery, the act of stealing spiritual energy from the profound yellow realm under the cover of the formation would be difficult to detect. But after all, it is not a long-term solution. If you want to create spiritual energy out of thin air, you still have to rely on the Dao One insect. The Dao One insect is a peculiar alien beast, which Li Fan cannot create. Buddha. Skipping the prompt of a returning to truth or retaining the option from the previous life, Li Fan looked at his panel. Name: Li Fan. Realm: Late-stage foundation establishment. Physiological age: 2399ths. Psychological age: 1399 Transforming void charging progress: 3%. Anchoring charging progress: 0%. Current number of anchors: 3. Current number of available anchors: 1. Bound items: Profound Heaven Mirror Source Remnant Tian Boat, Myriad Beast Coagulation Crystal, Myriad People Essence Blood, Transforming Tao Stone, Ending Disintegration Disc. A. Physiological age has returned to the 399 years that should be in the foundation establishment realm, but there is no need to worry about it. I should have already returned to the truth before the deadline arrives. The upper limit of psychological age, even if I once broke through to the God transformation, has not increased accordingly. It seems that I have reached a threshold. Li Fan just glanced at it and skipped these, focusing his attention on the number of anchors and the bound items. The original number of available anchors was 2, but after absorbing the nascent 5 elements cave heaven, it became 3. As for now, there is only 1 left. That's because Li Fan used a blank anchor to complete the replacement of the bound item. 8,000 Machines Jade Ring Golden Chaptera became the Profound Heaven Mirror Source. Steel of Stopping Damaged became the Myriad Beast Coagulation Crystal. Anchors were originally hard to come by, but in the process of absorbing the nascent 5 elements cave heaven and generating anchors, Li Fan had a new understanding of the essence of anchors. Heaven and Earth Wonders, Golden Core Methods, and Nascent Soul Cave Heavens. The reason why returning to truth needs to absorb these things to serve as anchors is likely because returning to truth is supplementing its understanding of a external objects. Just like the heavenly profound mirror completes its sublimation by measuring the world, returning to truth is simply and rudely absorbing experience through devouring. So it's the exact opposite of what I thought before. The closer something is to the essence of the world, the more charging progress it will provide. Foundation establishment wonders, law golden cores, are too thin and simply cannot satisfy the needs of returning to truth. So the number of anchors absorbed and generated is limited. On the contrary, nascent soul cave heavens, nascent changes, and even the soul of heaven and earth will provide a lot of charging progress. With the profound yellow realm as a behemoth to nourish it, the number of anchors is not a problem that needs special concern for the time being. So Li Fan did not hesitate to directly use the replacement function of the anchor. Profound heaven mirror source, obtained by chance in the previous life. As for the myriad beast coagulation crystalla, in the previous life, before finally implementing the destruction plan, Li Fan went to various small worlds to conduct a final inventory. The myriad beast wheel was the harvest from the Empire in Shukai. Li Fan's thoughts slowly drifted back to that time. The myriad Immortals alliance raided, and the headquarters of the Federation was destroyed. Xiao Qing's face turned pale when she heard what Li Fan said. If I hadn't cut off the connection between the spirit wood realm and you in time, I'm afraid the Empire would have been turned into ruins at this moment. Li Fan sighed slightly. The Empress and Xiao Hong looked at each other, their hearts filled with fear. But you don't need to worry too much. Although the spirit wood realm was destroyed, most of the members of the headquarters escaped safely and are temporarily lurking. When the storm passes, the Federation will be able to rise again in an instant, Li Fan said without changing his expression, coaxing them. After hearing this blatant lie, the people of the Empire became relieved instead. While listening to the Empire and others report on the recent situation, Li Fan came to the Empire's treasure house. Sorting out the plot, here is another update today. 1140. The inferior version of the sky patrolling arrow. All of the Empire's research achievements are backed up here. Li Fan strolled through this vast treasure trove, finally stopping at the location of the primal beast furnace before turning around. He took out an object and showed it to the two women. It was only a palm-sized disc, but the unintentional pressure it emitted made Xiao Qing and Xiao Hong's bodies tremble, and they couldn't help but feel the urge to kneel. What is this? They forcibly suppressed their body's instincts, looking at the disc in Li Fan's hand with horrified expressions, the myriad beast wheel. Their life and death were at the mercy of the other party. This feeling immediately reminded them of the legendary treasure of the demon beast race. However, after staring at the disc for a long time, they still found something amiss. As demon beasts, their bloodline memories contained ancestral memories of the myriad beast wheel. But it was clearly different from the object Li Fan was holding. The real myriad beast wheel had a more ancient and weathered aura. But this one in front of them, it did have some control over them. However, they might be able to break free if they resisted with all their might. There was still a significant gap between this and the legend of being unable to control one's life and death. A replica. Qing and Hong simultaneously had this thought, looking at Li Fan with suspicion. You guessed right, it is indeed a replica created by the elders of the Union based on the research data on the myriad beast wheel you provided earlier. Besides being able to restrain myriad beasts, it has another function, which is also the main purpose of my visit here. Li Fan suddenly sighed. The spirit wood realm was destroyed, and although personnel losses were small, we fled in a hurry, and many valuable materials and research data were not able to be brought out in time. Therefore, after much deliberation, the elders decided to activate the multi-world backup plan, copying and preserving everything of value from each small world. Li Fan hadn't finished speaking when Xiao Qing and Xiao Hong's expressions changed. But Li Fan continued to say lightly, this is also for your own good. After all, your empire's self-defense capabilities are too core. As long as the Myriad Immortals Alliance sends one or two Dao integration cultivators at random, they can completely destroy you. Keeping a copy of your civilization's seed in the Union means that even if something unexpected happens, it can be quickly rebuilt. Li Fan fiddled with the disc in his hand, looking at the countless frozen alien beast specimens in the Empire's treasury. Your greatest wealth is actually the various different alien beasts you have cultivated over the years. I know you all keep more than one backup, I will only take one of them. After saying that, without regard for Xiao Qing and Xiao Hong's reactions, a ray of light shone from the disc, sweeping across the frozen alien beasts. All those that were illuminated disappeared on the spot in an instant. And on the disc in Li Fan's hand, the phantoms of those alien beasts seemed to vaguely appear. It looked like these frozen alien beasts were captured and stored inside. In fact, they had long been directly decomposed by the disc's beam. At the same time, the information on these alien beasts' structure, bloodline, organization, and so on, were all recorded into the disc. All demon beasts under heaven come from Emperor 1. And the Empire's alien beasts are all cultivated and evolved from demon beasts of the past. The so-called myriad changes do not deviate from their origin. As long as this information is grasped, all alien beasts can be created, out of thin air. As the information on alien beasts increased, the phantoms on the disc also became more and more numerous. Not only did the aura it emitted become more majestic and powerful, but even the disc's own image changed accordingly. It became more and more similar to the true myriad beast wheel in Shaoqing and Xiaohong's memories. And in the process of collecting the backup of the alien beasts, Li Fan couldn't help but marvel at the wonders of creation. Besides some alien beasts that were directionally and deliberately cultivated, the vast majority of the Empire's alien beasts were born from various coincidences. Different bloodlines intertwined and mutated, and new species mutated into different subtypes. Seemingly endless, infinite possibilities. Li Fan's eyes suddenly flashed with the words spoken by the Emperor One beast in the fallen immortal illusion. Just as Li Fan was preparing to capture the information of a frozen alien beast as usual, he suddenly stopped. Because he sensed a familiar aura from this alien beast. Sky patrolling arrow. Shaoqing and Xiaohong immediately understood when they saw Li Fan's movements stop and his gaze fall on that spot. They quickly explained. This alien beast is the core of the arrow that the envoy instructed us to research earlier. We named it Space Splitter. We have seen similar demon beasts in the Imperial Beast sect, but they are far less ferocious and fast than the current one. Moreover, it has a stronger self-awareness and is difficult to control. The offspring currently cultivated are still somewhat different from the parent given to us by the envoy. Therefore, we have not reported it. After searching, Li Fan indeed found similar races next to the Space Splitter alien beast. If the core is insufficient, I can make up for it with formations. Even if it can't reach the damage of the Myriad Immortals Alliance's real sky patrolling arrow, having half of its power is very practical. Thinking this, Li Fan captured the information of all these Space Splitter alien beasts into the disc. Thoughts returned to the present. That disc, which contained the essence of the Empire's research, was naturally the Myriad Beast Crystal. With the Tianji realm's level of weapon refinement, coupled with the detailed and specific information on the Myriad Beast Wheel obtained from Shuke, creating a replica was not difficult. Condensing the alien beast entity from the Myriad Beast Crystal requires a large amount of spiritual power. My current late-stage foundation establishment cultivation level cannot support it. However, as long as Sun Erlang drives the Tian boat back from the profound Yellow Realm, it will be fine. With the Dao One Worm, plus the Space Splitter, the Great Zon will have the capital to conquer other small worlds. Going to the Netherworld requires the Netherworld race to launch a special ritual. Don't think that Li Fan easily suppressed the Netherworld race in his previous life. That was because he possessed the 5 elements Great Cave Heaven, and his true combat power was still above ordinary Dao integration. And in this life, Li Fan, who is already in the true immortal network, cannot easily improve his realm. Relying solely on the Great Zon realm, the Netherworld race is not so easy to deal with. Therefore, it is also necessary to improve the combat power of the Great Zon soldiers and civilians as much as possible, and to improve Li Fan's own level of Heavenly Emperor Qi Canon. Li Fan stood on the Holy Emperor throne and began to think about suitable conquest targets. A month later, Sun Erlang successfully drove the Tian boat back. The first step for the Great Zon to sublimate to a spiritual power world also began. As the first heaven and earth furnace was successfully built, spiritual energy began to diffuse within the scope of Xuanjing City. The Great Zon Forbidden Army was the first to feel the existence of spiritual energy. Overnight, the hundreds of Forbidden Army members with the profound Yellow Immortal Heart mantra all successfully drew Qi into their bodies, and from then on embarked on the path of cultivation. And the best of them, Sun Erlang, even used the power of the sitting immortal art to advance to the perfection of Qi refining in one fell swoop.